Waking up as Harry Potter sounds like a dream, until reality hits like a sledgehammer. If only there were a skip button to fast forward through the starvation, isolation, and outright abuse. Unfortunately, there wasn't. But fate did offer one small mercy. His true consciousness didn't fully awaken until he turned 5. Before that, his underdeveloped brain filtered the trauma. He didn't remember the screams, the cold, the hunger. Not really. But on his 5th birthday, it all came crashing back. Memories of a past life surged through him like a tidal wave. Like Neo in the Matrix downloading skills in seconds. The influx nearly broke him. It took several minutes of gasping and grounding before his mind stabilized, sinking with his small, fragile body. It was disorienting. One moment, an adult. The next, a scrawny child with bruises and calluses, and a center of gravity that felt utterly foreign. But once the shock passed, he began to accept. He was Harry Potter now, the scar boy destined for fame, death, and betrayal. Destiny, Dumbledore's manipulations, horcruxes, he remembered it all. He also remembered magic, not just from this life, but from his previous one. And with that memory came something else. Cheats. But before he could begin unpacking them, reality knocked. Literally. Bang. Bang. Boy. Vernon Dursley's voice thundered through the cupboard door. Get up and make breakfast. Harry groaned, not out of fear, but irritation. Yes, Uncle Vernon, he said evenly, pulling himself up and stepping into his routine. The kitchen smelled of cheap bacon grease and cigarette smoke. As he cooked, he focused on something else. His first cheat, telekinesis. Carefully, subtly, he reached out with his mind. He nudged the edge of a pancake. It wobbled slightly. Success. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Like in the movie Chronicle, it had to be trained like a muscle. So he trained, daily, during moments of isolation and silence. The weeks that followed were hard. Home was hell. School wasn't much better. But Harry, this Harry, wasn't a pushover. With the mind of a grown man and knowledge of what lay ahead, he started manipulating the battlefield. At school, he mapped out routes and escape paths. He loitered near adults or security cameras, ensuring witnesses during Dudley's Harry hunting sprees. He didn't fight back yet, but he was no longer a defenseless target either. He didn't bother making friends. This was temporary. Soon, he'd leave the Muggle world behind. Instead, he trained. In secret, quietly, relentlessly. At first, he practiced on small objects, paper clips, coins, pencils. Then heavier ones, books, backpacks, chairs. Eventually, he moved on to multiple objects at once, refining his control and finesse. By the end of the 2nd month, he could lift 5 kilograms without effort and create a weak, invisible shield around his body. Inspired by Chronicle, he tested it by stabbing his hand with a fork. The shield held. He was making progress. Next came his second ability, teleportation. A cheat straight out of Jumper. After school one afternoon, Harry escaped toward one of his mapped-out parks and focused. He visualized a spot 20 meters ahead and blinked. Flash. He was there. Heart racing, he replayed the sensation in his mind, anchoring it. Over the next week, he practiced every day in low-traffic areas. Jumping got easier. Unlike TK, teleportation didn't require precision, only intent and familiarity with the location. He didn't yet have pictures, so he couldn't mark jump sites like in a movie, but then he remembered another cheat, the focus from Horizon Zero Dawn. Receive item, he whispered. A triangular device materialized in his palm. He clipped it to his right temple, and his vision flooded with information. Map data, recording functions, 360-degree snapshots of his surroundings. He was stunned. The device was real and powerful. Using it, he cataloged jump points. The focus also gave him access to a primitive form of the internet, limited, early-stage servers. Not yet useful, but the map, the motion tracking, and the spatial memory were invaluable. By now, he kept the focus hidden beneath his hair and his shield active at all times. His mental strength had grown enough to maintain it constantly. When the foundation was set, he turned to something more delicate, magic nullification. If he ever wanted to leave Privet Drive for good, He had to bypass Dumbledore's surveillance. The blood wards, the tracking spells, they had to go. So he sat. He breathed. He focused. He could feel the faint threads of magic in the air, the way a spider might sense tension on its web. He followed them. The wards reached outward, tethering him to somewhere or someone, likely Dumbledore. So he began dismantling them. Carefully, slowly, he nullified any tether not directly related to the ward's protective function, just the trackers. For days, he monitored. Nothing changed. No owls. No ministry intervention. No fire-summoned wizards. Dumbledore wasn't watching. He was assuming everything was fine. And Harry? Harry was nearly free. All that remained now was the blood ward itself. And when that falls, Harry Potter is no one's pawn. We have a lot to talk about, Harry said quietly, his gaze fixed on Petunia's eyes. It was dinner time. The Dursleys sat around the table as they always did. Vernon with his usual scowl, Dudley shoveling food into his mouth, and Petunia stiff-backed and tense. But something was different tonight. There was steel in Harry's voice. Petunia froze mid-cut of her roast. The look in his eyes told her everything. He knew, not just about the letter that would one day arrive, not just about Hogwarts. He knew everything. What are you prattling on about, boy? Vernon barked, but Petunia silenced him with a single glance. I know what I am, Harry said evenly. I've known for some time now. A wizard. And I know about the school, too. Hogwarts. Petunia's stomach twisted. The name she'd tried so hard to forget, Lily's World, came flooding back like a dam breaking. You're not going, Vernon said sharply. We swore when we took you in, we put an end to that freakish nonsense. And I will not allow you to go to that school of monsters. Petunia snapped, her voice trembling. Harry didn't flinch. You can yell all you want, but the real question is, why? He asked. Why what? Petunia asked warily. Why keep me here when you could send me away for most of the year? You've made it abundantly clear you don't want me. So why not take the chance to be rid of me? Silence. You've never raised me as a child should be raised. No love, no praise, barely any food. You reward Dudley for every tantrum and punish me for existing. You don't guide me. You don't teach me. You just make sure I survive long enough to do the chores. Petunia's lips tightened. You think this is about Dudley? She spat. You want what he has. Harry shook his head. No, maybe when I was 4. But now? No. What I want is simple understanding of what this life has cost me and what it's doing to him. Vernon snorted. Don't you dare tell us how to raise our son. I'm not telling you how to raise him, Harry replied coldly. I'm warning you. The way you're raising him is setting him up for failure. You're creating someone who's arrogant, entitled, incapable of respect or discipline. And one day, when the world doesn't bend to him like you do, he will fall. Hard. Dudley shifted in his seat, but remained quiet. The fear in Vernon's voice told him it wasn't the right time to speak. Harry's voice dropped, calm and surgical. And as for me, the constant punishment, the starvation, the gaslighting, it's shaping me too. If I'd been just a normal kid, I might have grown up shy, socially stunted, incapable of forming connections. At worst, he paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was cold enough to chill the room. At worst, I might have become something far darker. A broken, violent person. Someone who snaps. Someone who decides the only justice left is revenge. The Dursleys went pale. You've seen the news. School shootings. Violence. Children pushed to the brink. All it takes is enough cruelty in the wrong moment. Vernon's voice cracked. Why you wouldn't? We're your family. We took you in. Raised you out of the goodness of our hearts. Harry cut him off. No, you took me in because you had to, and you treated me like garbage ever since. I'm not threatening you, Uncle. I'm telling you the truth. The only reason I'm still sane is because I remember who I used to be. But if you keep pushing me, one day, I might break. And magic. He looked directly into Petunia's eyes. Magic is far more dangerous than guns. A long, suffocating silence followed. What do you want? Petunia finally asked, voice small. Simple, Harry said. From now on, you leave me alone. No more bullying from Dudley. No more Harry hunting. No more punishment for things I didn't do. And after that, You're going to take me to the edge of the wizarding world, Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley, I don't care which, and drop me off. I'll make my own arrangements from there. Petunia's mouth opened, but no words came. I'll find my own way to live. Once I've figured everything out, I'll send you documents to sign, legal emancipation. You can tell anyone who asks that I've gone to live with extended family. I'll disappear from your lives. Permanently. Vernon looked pleased. Dudley just looked confused. And when those freaks from the magical world come asking, Vernon grunted. What do we tell them? That I left on my own, that I wanted freedom, and that you supported it. If the paperwork is in order, both magical and legal, they won't be able to do a thing about it. The Dursleys exchanged glances. Petunia said nothing. For the first time, she understood just how much they had broken Lily's son, and perhaps how little she had left of her own soul. Guilt began to worm its way in, but she said nothing. What did she say now? Vernon, on the other hand, looked like he had just been handed the keys to a dream life, one without Harry Potter. Dudley stayed silent. Most of it went over his head anyway. After a long pause, Petunia finally nodded. Fine, she said. Do what you need. Just go. Harry stood, calm and resolute. I will. He returned to the cupboard one last time. Hopefully the last time he'd ever sleep there. And as he lay on the thin mattress, he stared at the ceiling with a quiet anticipation. This life had stolen his childhood, but the next chapter, it would belong to him.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoy my quantum audiobooks, you can support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. You can also access my audiobooks directly through Google Drive. Check out the link in the description. Now, let's get started.
The following morning, after Dudley was sent off to school, they advised the principal to let Harry skip for today due to family matters. Harry wore a cap to hide his face and scar better. He also had a hood on to obscure his looks as much as possible. Though he was wearing oversized clothes from Dudley, it had to do for now. He took one look at the house, then nullified the blood warts. Whatever happens next, he'll just have to deal with as it comes. They drove Harry to the leaky cauldron. Petunia still knew where it was, as she remembered where Lily disappeared to whenever she bought her school supplies. Petunia went with Harry for now, since he was just a child, and it could get them in trouble if he was left alone. Vernon went to wait at the car, and Petunia went with Harry just until he got to the bank. As they entered the pub, it was fairly simple to request Tom, the owner, to let them through to Diagon Alley despite the boy being too young for Hogwarts or Petunia being a muggle. All they had to do was tell the owner they need to go to Gringotts. As they were walking along the relatively peaceful alley, Petunia felt the loss of her sister once more. She remembered begging the magical people to let her join Lily and being rejected. She remembered the sadness of watching her leave to another world and their diminishing relationship after that. As she looked at the witch and wizards going about their day and marveling at the wondrous sights, it came with so much sadness for her. As they reached the bank, Petunia turned around as this was Harry's business now. No matter how nostalgic she felt or regret for Lily, this couldn't change her hatred of the world that denied her. Harry proceeded to find an empty counter. What do you want, wizard? The goblin asked. I would like to ask for an inheritance test, and if you can arrange for a solicitor, please, replied Harry. Preferably one who deals with muggle-born or half-bloods. I would also prefer to have my business here kept private and no one notified, including any who declare themselves my magical or legal guardian. Very well, we will start with the inheritance ritual, as the solicitor will take time to get here, the goblin said with a knowing look as he ushered Harry to another room and guided by another goblin. After dropping his blood, the ritual went fairly quickly, and soon a parchment copy was handed to him. The goblin also held one for their official records of what the boy could access. Inheritance ritual results. Harry James Potter. Father, James Fleamont Potter deceased. Mother, Lily Jane Potter, née Evans deceased. Godfather, Sirius Orion Black. Inheritance. Ancient and noble house of Potter. James Fleamont Potter. Ancient and noble house of Peveril. Ignotus Peveril line. Ancient and noble house of Slytherin. By conquest, Tom Marvolo Riddle, October 31st, 1981. Vaults. Potter Vault, Limited access before maturity. Peveril Vault, upon maturity. Slytherin Vault. If accepted by Ring, full access immediately. Vaults currently accessible. Potter Trust. List of properties. Just as Harry had expected, there was vaults he had access to. And he did consider the possibility that he would have more than one, and he wasn't mistaken. He skipped the list of properties for now and tucked the parchment in his pocket. It turns out the goblin's inheritance ritual does not in fact show any potions or blocks on his body, as that would be covered in a proper healer checkup rather than properties or inheritance ritual. So if he wanted to check anything related to his body beyond what he legally owns, he needs to check with a healer instead. Just as he was studying the results, he was guided to a private room, and the solicitor was guided in. They were given some time before the goblin in charge of his accounts came in. "Hello, Mr. Potter. My name is Andrew Holland." The man said. "Well met, Mr. Holland. Before we begin, I do hope anything discussed between us shall remain a secret." Harry asked. "Of course, Mr. Potter, as is standard." Then he readily raised his wand and spoke of an oath by magic to keep what they will discuss a secret and shall not be discussed with anyone without Harry's consent. After discussing fees, Harry then proceeded to state the main topics. First order of business is my legal and magical guardianship. At the moment, I live with my muggle relatives, my magic-hating relatives, so I wish to be removed from their care to one of my choosing if possible. Next would be my magical guardian, who I believe declared himself as such without my knowledge or consent, nor the consent of my parents for all I know. I wish for it to be changed to someone of my designation. But all of it will need to follow after we somehow obtain access to my parents' wills, as I believe it was ignored or sealed. Andrew was surprised that the will was not followed. "Why do you believe so?" he asked. "Because if it was followed, I would not be with my muggle relatives. My aunt is the sister of Lily Potter, and I think she would definitely know about her magic-hating sister and would most likely not designate her as my guardian." "I see. I think it's best if we consider this after you read the will first. Even if it is indeed sealed, there would normally be a copy inside their vaults, which would have been transferred into the main family vault after their deaths. While you would not be able to take anything from the main vault, as long as you gain heirship, you would be legally able to inspect its contents. So it should be possible to at least read the wills and make a copy," Andrew advised. While the copy of the will cannot be submitted as proper evidence of the actual will, it can be used to jumpstart the investigation and allow the ministry to declare the opening of the legal copy of the will either from the ministry, or in this case, the one from the vault. Andrew then mentioned to call the goblin and have Harry claim his airships first. A few moments later, Harry was able to obtain the Potter airship ring as it readily accepted him. The same was with the Peveril ring. As for the Slytherin ring, unlike fanfics he read in his past life, he was told that if the ring did not accept him, it will simply not be possible to wear, so he made an attempt to wear it anyway. After a few seconds, the ring resized like the other rings, which signified its acceptance. "Congratulations, Mr. Potter. You are now the heir of Potter, Peveril, and Slytherin," the goblin claimed. "As you do not have the key for your trust, we can either recall the current key or produce a new one for a fee." "Thank you, sir. Now I would like to have me and my solicitor brought to the Potter main vault to inspect it, please. I was already advised I cannot take anything from inside it just yet, and I would like to produce a new key and pay the fee." "Of course. Follow me." A few minutes later, after the long roller coaster-like ride, they arrived at the Potter main vault, where the goblin opened the Potter main vault. The key for the main vault was not provided to Harry, as he is not of age just yet. Harry and Andrew found the will immediately, and Andrew proceeded to make a magical copy of said will before quickly ensuring the rest of the vault's contents were in order. Harry saw a huge pile of galleons that it may as well be a bloody mountain of gold. Apart from that, there are also some antiques and furniture, magical artifacts, and books. He merely glanced at them for now before going out of the vault, not before recording the inside with his focus. This way, in an emergency, he could jump here and empty it at a moment's notice. For good measure, he also cast a magic nullified area in a small corner of the vault. That way he can jump to that exact spot where no magic exists nor can get in. Except him anyway. He figured his jump ability wasn't rooted in magic, but a scientific phenomenon. They then proceeded to withdraw a bit of money from his trust vault and paid for a small bag with an extended space charm and security protections that tied to his blood. Before going back to the lobby, though, Harry went to inspect the Slytherin vault and left another magic null area and recorded it in the focus as well. He didn't fully understand why, but just assumed that due to it being from conquest and not inheritance per se, he had immediate access to the full vault. Once done in Gringotts, Harry and Andrew then traveled to Madame Amelia Bones's office in the Ministry. Meanwhile, in the headmaster's office, Dumbledore was busy with his usual scheming and plans for manipulations instead of his actual responsibilities for any of his 3 titles. He was so busy with his schemes that he did not even notice all his trinkets, meant to monitor Harry, all had gone silent. Since the connections were all cut, the artifacts stopped working. Unless Dumbledore looked at them specifically, he would not notice anything wrong. Little did he know, this was the beginning of his constant headaches. While Amelia Bones is normally busy with her responsibilities as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, or DMLE, because the Dark Lord was reportedly vanquished for a few years ago, there was a relative moment of peace, so there wasn't as much Death Eater activity. Today was a relatively slow day of mostly internal investigations and paperwork. After her secretary told her there was a solicitor and a child asking to see her, she readily accepted as it wasn't a particularly busy day. Madam Bones, Andrew Holland, a solicitor, and this is my client. I would like to talk to you about a few sensitive matters. If possible, would you please erect privacy wards as well? Andrew said. This made Amelia wake up from her previously sleepy state. She led them to a secure room in her office and raised the privacy charms. Madam Bones, let me start by introducing my client, Mr. Harry Potter. Andrew started. This surprised Amelia a lot. It has been a few years since the death of the Potters. Since then, Albus Dumbledore has declared that the child is safe and hidden for his own protection. No one has heard or seen the boy until now. It was also curious that there were dozens of practically fiction books in his name, but that's another matter. Good afternoon, Mr. Potter. It has been years since we last heard of news regarding you. Welcome back to the wizarding world. Amelia greeted him. Good afternoon, Madam Bones. I'm afraid we have quite a bit to discuss, Harry said as he greeted her back. Andrew then gave her a copy of the will. This is a copy of the Potter's will to which this discussion is centered upon. Andrew and Harry read it earlier, so they already knew what it said. But as for Amelia, it was very shocking. It clearly states that Sirius Black was Harry's godfather, and that the secret keeper was Peter Pettigrew. It also stated that Harry was to be raised by the people listed as their preferred guardian. In the wizarding world, a godfather oath could have dire consequences if broken, as it is bound by a magical contract. This alone would have cleared him of the charges, as killing Harry's parents would also be treated as harming the boy, as it will greatly affect his future. If this was true, it would mean they locked up an innocent man for years in Azkaban. This greatly troubled Amelia. Not only will this be a huge blow to the Ministry, but also possibly cause chaos due to what it implies. If a member of an ancient and noble house like Black was thrown in jail for a crime he did not commit, it would be seen by other houses as a possible threat that they too could be thrown in Azkaban. So this is regarding Sirius Black then, I take it? Amelia asked with a sigh. That's one of the reasons, but there are more issues. First of all, my client would like to remove himself from his current legal guardians and would like to designate a magical guardian of his own choosing as well. He claims he is currently living with his muggle relatives who are rather unkind towards witches and wizards, said Andrew. This shocked Amelia again. She read back to the will and found that there was a list to be named guardian for Harry. Her name was even among said list. And at the end of the list, it explicitly stated that Harry was under no circumstance to be left to the Dursleys and her sister Petunia. How is this possible? The will clearly states that he is not to be brought there of all places. Amelia asked with a bit of anger in her voice. That's just it, madam. The will was never read, much less followed. It was sealed and ignored for years. Andrew replied. Amelia stood up and said, "Stay here for a bit. Let me get my secretary on this." Then she proceeded to get her secretary look up the proper paperwork regarding Harry Potter. After a few minutes, the secretary gave her a few documents which showed that Albus Dumbledore sealed the will and took guardianship of the boy. This made her angry at the old man. She returned to the office and proceeded to tell them what she found. So it was indeed him after all. There's a lot to unpack here, but we would like to start with his guardianship first, madam, said Andrew. Very well. For now, as head of DMLE, I, Amelia Bones, declare temporary legal and magical guardianship of Harry Potter until the investigation is completed and sorted out. So mote it be. I'll have the paperwork done by the end of the day. Do you have any personal belongings and clothing that need to be moved? She asked. I'm afraid only what I have on my person, madam. Harry replied. I was being kept in a cupboard for as long as I remember and only had my cousin's old hand-me-downs for clothes. Nothing really that I would consider mine. What? A bloody cupboard? Surely not, exclaimed Amelia. Andrew was also startled. He was not aware it was that bad. Might I suggest sending a few Aurors to take pictures of his living conditions as evidence? Andrew advised. Amelia agreed, but before Amelia could call Aurors, Harry had told her about Mrs. Fig who lived across them. He told Amelia that she was possibly from the wizarding world, keeping an eye on him, but ignoring his plight. Amelia called a few trusted Aurors to take Mrs. Fig into custody for child neglect, and the others to take photos of Harry's room and living conditions. She told them to be in and out quickly. Harry expressed he didn't want to do anything more than to simply leave them, so Amelia chose not to do anything first and merely take photographs. The Aurors apparat to the house, and they got in and out before Petunia even got back home. The Aurors got back and told Amelia of the highly illegal blood wards were on the house. But for some reason they were no longer active, nor emitting any magic, only faint traces left. The moment Amelia saw the cupboard and the photo of the child writing on the wall, saying it was Harry's room, tears formed in her eyes, and she felt unbelievable anger. How could people do this to a child? Especially of their own blood, she thought. You will stay with me and my niece until this is all sorted. I will not have the boy who lived suffer any longer, she exclaimed. Beyond my client's guardianship and in living situation, we can finally move on to our secondary topic, the will. Andrew started. If the will was sealed, how then was Dumbledore able to take the child to them at all? Would imply that he in fact kidnapped my client. So we would like to form a case for child kidnapping, endangerment, and neglect. We might also look into abuse of his positions in the ministry for sealing the will. But this also ties in with the third topic, which is Sirius Black. If indeed he is innocent of the charges, that would mean Dumbledore deliberately allowed him to be imprisoned. After all, if he could simply vouch for a Death Eater, he could have done the same to someone who was known to be James Potter's best friend. Andrew added. Amelia felt a headache coming. Dumbledore, sure, crossed a lot of lines. We will need to be careful with this, so we would not want to make any moves to alert Dumbledore just yet. We want this airtight. So for now, it's best to handle these topics separately and under the radar. We would also like to make it as if Mr. Black's case is unrelated to my client for now and focus on getting him an actual trial. Pardon, Dash? What do you mean? Asked Amelia. Based on my quick inquiries, Sirius Black never got one, madam. Andrew stated. Bloody hell. Now Amelia was really upset. Before we wrap this up, though, I have some information where we can obtain proof to get Sirius out. Harry spoke, though I would not be able to speak how I obtained said information. Amelia raised an eyebrow at this, but if the information is credible, they might be able to use it to free the former Auror sooner. She signaled Harry to go on. Peter Pettigrew, the actual secret keeper who betrayed my parents, is alive and well. He framed my godfather that night, cut off a finger, and reverted to his animagus form of a rat. I even know where said rat is right now. If you can arrange trusted Aurors, you can catch him tomorrow, said Harry. Amelia was stunned once more. Not only is this information important, it might even be vital. Not only do they get possible proof of Black's innocence, but also possibly catch the traitor who sold out the Potters. Oh, a few hours later, the paperwork for Harry's guardianship was properly filed in the ministry, though it was properly kept quiet and no announcements. They merely corrected the paperwork and hid it back in the records for anyone to find if they knew to search for it. It was also noted in the paperwork that Albus Dumbledore was not allowed to make direct contact with Harry Potter unless it is related to his grades or performance at school and must be through his official capacity as headmaster. Though he would not know of this until much, much later when Harry does go to Hogwarts. For the time being, they made it as if Andrew was a solicitor hired by an anonymous member of the House of Black to get him a proper trial. While it may hurt the image of the ministry, Amelia agreed that this should be prominently announced to all papers and news outlets for the wizarding world so that the current Minister Fudge would not be able to cover it up. So they prepared statements to be sent and published the same time the next Wisengamot meeting. They timed it so the issue would come out that day. Oh, as the day ended, Harry was taken to the Bones Mansion and the raid to catch the rat was set the following day. Amelia told her elf to call Susan, her niece, to the living room so she can introduce Harry. "Hi, Aunt Amelia. Who's this?" asked the young Susan. "Susan, this is Harry Potter," Amelia replied with a knowing smile. Susan was shocked to hear it was the boy who lived right there in their living room. "The Harry Potter? He will be living with us for the foreseeable future until I sort out his guardianship. For now, I am his temporary guardian, and thus he will remain here," Amelia told her. Susan, still stunned, was unable to speak. She was not able to come to terms just yet, since it was too surprising. All she could say was hello. Harry's situation is a bit problematic, so his stay here is strictly confidential. In case he needs to go out, he would need to continue wearing a proper disguise and escort. Amelia then looked to Harry and continued, "If you do need to sort some stuff out, make sure you notify me, so I can at least get an Auror or two as escort. And call me Aunt Amelia as well." "All right, Aunt Amelia. Please note that I wish to visit the Lovegoods for a private matter, though I suppose we could let them get the copy for our statements regarding Sirius early on and simply advise them when it could be published," said Harry. "And maybe shop for some change of clothes that actually fit me for once." Amelia thought for a bit as she knew Xenophilus Lovegood was the editor of the Quibbler. While it does not have the same reach as the Daily Prophet, they might as well, since they had planned to have the statements sent to other publications as well, including those overseas. Again, Amelia thought it sad that this would hurt the reputation of the ministry, but it needed to be done to avoid more injustice. "All right, I'll have an Auror come with you, but make sure you are in proper disguise. That hat and hood works fine to hide your scar, though we might need to get you a different pair of glasses later on. I also want to keep the afternoon free, as I want to get you to a complete health check in St. Mungo's." Harry nodded, but also though he would eventually need to talk to Amelia about the horcrux in his head. But he would have to think of it tomorrow. Also, maybe not tomorrow, but soon I would like to have access to a library if you have one. I have not been taught anything related to magic at all, so I have a lot to catch up on, including our customs and laws. While I have claimed my airships, I still have no idea what those entail. Susan can help you there, so after your talk with the Lovegoods, you can ask her," Amelia noted. Susan, finally catching up to her surprise, spoke as well. I can help you get started when you get back after your trip." "Thanks," replied Harry. The following morning, several Aurors were found surrounding the burrow while Amelia and two others were with her to knock on the front door. Arthur opened the door as he was just about leave for the ministry. He was surprised that the head of the DMLE was here personally. "Madam Bones, what can I do for you?" he asked. Amelia made a quick glance to ensure the suspect was not nearby, as she created a quick privacy charm and spoke. "We have reason to believe that an animagus is hiding in your house. It is said that the person in question is in the form of a rat. Please cooperate, and we will be out of your house as quick as possible," Amelia told him. Arthur was shocked and worried. How could there be an animagus living in their house without them knowing? Then it came to him. A rat animagus. His son Percy had one. For years, longer than a normal rat should live. He was not here at the moment, since most of the children were at Hogwarts. But they were not needed, since the rat in question was passed on to their youngest son, Ronald. Amelia and the Aurors quickly barged in. They followed as Arthur showed them the way to Ron's room. Since it was early morning, the rat in question was sleeping inside its cage, since Ron was still asleep. The Aurors quickly stunned the rat and took it out of the cage. Ronald was woken up with the commotion and was disoriented. "Why?" he asked. It's fine, Ron. These are ores. I'll explain later. Arthur told him. Just then the Auror finished inspecting the rat and chucked it inside a cage they brought. One that was enchanted to be rather sturdy, not to break in case an animagus reverts to human form. Not that it could, since it was also preventing it. Madam Bones, it's definitely an animagus. And it's missing a toe. One Auror said. Take him back to a holding cell. No one approaches him other than you two or me. Not even the minister. Is that understood? She asked the Auror. Yes, madam. Then they quickly left as fast as they came. Meanwhile, Amelia spoke a bit with Arthur. Sorry about this, Arthur, but that rat was possibly a Death Eater animagus who was hidden here for years. I can't speak of the details just yet, as this is an extremely fragile situation. You will know the details after the Wisingamot trial. For now, I don't want this getting out. Keep this to yourselves, or I will have your job. Amelia then left and recalled all the Aurors and went back to the ministry. Arthur was confused and extremely worried, but there was nothing he could do but tell his family not to speak of this or they will be kicked out of the family. Molly was also surprised and afraid. It was an animagus, a stranger living among them for years. Luckily, only Ron and Ginny were there. The rest were still in Hogwarts, and Bill was working for Gringotts. Only Ron was awake, so Arthur talked to him to keep it to himself, or he could lose his job. Oh. Meanwhile, Harry was arriving at the Lovegoods and knocked on the door. The Aurors stayed outside to keep watch since Harry's talk with the Lovegoods was private. Good morning, young man. How can I help you? Asked a beautiful blonde woman. Hello, is this the house of the Lovegoods? My name is Harry Potter. I would like to talk to you and your husband, please, said Harry. Oh my. Of course, come inside. I'm Pandora Lovegood, by the way. You're quite early. Would you like to join us for breakfast? She said with a bright smile. That would be lovely, thank you. Harry replied with a pun and a smirk. I see what you did there. Giggled a young child near Harry's age as they went to the dining area. Hello, my name is Luna. It's nice to meet you, she said brightly. It's nice to meet you too. Harry smiled. Harry ate for a bit with them while having a bit of small talk before he spoke to Xenophilus and told him about the statements he wanted published. He already coordinated with Andrew about what to publish, so it was just a matter of giving a copy to the papers and when. Harry explained the situation, but not before asking them this talk was off the record. He then explained regarding Sirius' illegal imprisonment and his desire to do this anonymously. Zeno readily agreed, since this could boost sales either way. Harry then proposed to Zeno that he could exclusively give statements to the Quibbler if his statements are published without alterations. He explained he knew of the Daily Prophet's habit of exaggerating and lies spread by the ministry. So he wanted to release his side of whatever comes up that is related to him as long as it is published without altering or twisting his words. This was happily accepted by Zeno and gave his word that if any situation arises that needs Harry to make statement, he would publish it without falsehoods. This prompted a new section in the publication called Lightning Watch, inspired by Harry's lightning-shaped scar. After a wonderful breakfast, Harry requested a private word with Pandora and Xenophilus, so they sent Luna to her room for the time being. Though she did give Harry a kiss on the cheek with a giggle before going upstairs and saying goodbye to him in case he doesn't catch her when he leaves. This got a few knowing smiles and giggles from the both Lovegoods. Harry then did a fake cough and started his serious talk. First of all, I am no seer and I cannot tell you how I know of this, so you have no reason to believe me, but I still hope you do anyway. Harry started. This made both Lovegoods sit up straight and focus on his next words. There is an accident that will happen soon. The event will happen between the time frame now and before Luna goes to Hogwarts. Harry looked straight into Pandora's eyes and said firmly, that accident will happen as you are experimenting with some spells which will take your life. Said event will happen in front of Luna, so it will deeply scar her and bring great pain to both Zeno and Luna. They will be broken for years. I come here in hopes of giving you a warning to either prepare or prevent it entirely. I was hoping to save Luna that future of pain and loneliness. Harry let this sink in. Both Lovegoods were shocked and confused at first. Then they were worried. While the boy did say he was not a seer, it is of no doubt that the information he mentioned leads people to believe he is indeed one. They were both too stunned to speak, so they remained silent looking at the boy. I cannot tell you the precise day when this happens. I can only tell you it will happen before Luna goes to Hogwarts. Like I said, you don't have to believe, but I hope you will take great care if you indeed experiment with spells, charms, or enchantments. If anything, at least use this warning to ensure your safety when doing so. Then Harry looked down silent. He didn't know how to explain this anyway. After a short while, Pandora moved to hug Harry, who was surprised. "Thank you," Pandora whispered, "for caring enough to warn us. For trying no matter how absurd this sounds. Whether this happens or not, I promise we will take our safety into account." Xenophilus nodded and said thanks as well. If he lost his Pandora, he knew it would indeed break him. "We will make sure this never even happens if we can, and ensure protective equipment in case it does." "Thank you, Mr. Potter. My Pandora is everything to me. We will not ask how you have this knowledge. We will simply say thank you." And with this, Harry bid farewell to the Lovegoods and gave a casual wave of goodbye to Luna, who he can see in the window. Just for the heck of it, Harry did a flying kiss gesture to her, which made her giggle. Luna POV. As Harry left, Luna felt like she was among the clouds. She had met the boy who saved them all from the Dark Lord. He wasn't like she imagined. She had heard a lot about him from her friend Ginny, though most of what she heard were mostly from the books being sold about him. He was very different from his character. She thought he was rather nice and polite. He was quite nice looking as well. He was not arrogant or overbearing like the books portray. After a nice breakfast with them, she got to get a glimpse of Harry Potter, not the boy who lived, but the boy. They didn't talk about anything important, but simple things like food, Quidditch, maybe possible subjects he's looking forward to learning. But it was enough to show who he really is apart from his titles. She thought like her heart was going to burst when she attempted to give him a kiss on the cheek before she went up. She was glad he didn't seem put off by it. She felt sorry for Ginny, since the redhead liked the boy of the stories. But Luna liked the boy himself, and not the fictional character the books portray him as. She didn't know how Ginny would take it if she realized how different Harry actually was, but she was hoping her friend would eventually get over it. When Harry was leaving, she saw him do a flying kiss gesture which made her giggle. The boy was sweet, and by Merlin she liked him already. He wasn't like the red-haired mean boy that called him names. No, he wasn't like Ginny's brother. While she does not fully understand romantic love, just yet being so young, she knew she wanted to see him again. Luna thought about how they were both going to Hogwarts someday, and she realized she can't wait. She started to hope that he would visit again sometime. "We have a lot to talk about," Harry said quietly, his gaze fixed on Petunia's eyes. It was dinner time. The Dursleys sat around the table as they always did. Vernon with his usual scowl, Dudley shoveling food into his mouth, and Petunia stiff-backed and tense. But something was different tonight. There was steel in Harry's voice. Petunia froze mid-cut of her roast. The look in his eyes told her everything. He knew, not just about the letter that would one day arrive, not just about Hogwarts. He knew everything. "What are you prattling on about, boy?" Vernon barked, but Petunia silenced him with a single glance. "I know what I am," Harry said evenly. "I've known for some time now. A wizard. And I know about the school, too. Hogwarts." Petunia's stomach twisted. The name she'd tried so hard to forget, Lily's World, came flooding back like a dam breaking. "You're not going," Vernon said sharply. "We swore when we took you in, we put an end to that freakish nonsense. And I will not allow you to go to that school of monsters." Petunia snapped, her voice trembling. Harry didn't flinch. "You can yell all you want, but the real question is, why?" he asked. "Why what?" Petunia asked warily. "Why keep me here when you could send me away for most of the year? You've made it abundantly clear you don't want me. So why not take the chance to be rid of me?" Silence. "You've never raised me as a child should be raised. No love, no praise, barely any food. You reward Dudley for every tantrum and punish me for existing. You don't guide me. You don't teach me. You just make sure I survive long enough to do the chores." Petunia's lips tightened. "You think this is about Dudley?" she spat. "You want what he has." Harry shook his head. "No, maybe when I was 4. But now? No. What I want is simple understanding of what this life has cost me and what it's doing to him." Vernon snorted. Don't you dare tell us how to raise our son. I'm not telling you how to raise him, Harry replied coldly. I'm warning you. The way you're raising him is setting him up for failure. You're creating someone who's arrogant, entitled, incapable of respect or discipline. And one day, when the world doesn't bend to him like you do, he will fall. Hard. Dudley shifted in his seat, but remained quiet. The fear in Vernon's voice told him it wasn't the right time to speak. Harry's voice dropped, calm and surgical. And as for me, the constant punishment, the starvation, the gaslighting, it's shaping me too. If I'd been just a normal kid, I might have grown up shy, socially stunted, incapable of forming connections. At worst, he paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was cold enough to chill the room. At worst, I might have become something far darker. A broken, violent person. Someone who snaps. Someone who decides the only justice left is revenge. The Dursleys went pale. You've seen the news. School shootings. Violence. Children pushed to the brink. All it takes is enough cruelty in the wrong moment. Vernon's voice cracked. Why you wouldn't? We're your family. We took you in, raised you out of the goodness of our hearts. Harry cut him off. No, you took me in because you had to, and you treated me like garbage ever since. I'm not threatening you, Uncle. I'm telling you the truth. The only reason I'm still sane is because I remember who I used to be. But if you keep pushing me, one day, I might break. And magic. He looked directly into Petunia's eyes. Magic is far more dangerous than guns. A long, suffocating silence followed. What do you want? Petunia finally asked, voice small. Simple, Harry said. From now on, you leave me alone. No more bullying from Dudley. No more Harry hunting. No more punishment for things I didn't do. And after that, you're going to take me to the edge of the wizarding world, Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley, I don't care which, and drop me off. I'll make my own arrangements from there. Petunia's mouth opened, but no words came. I'll find my own way to live. Once I've figured everything out, I'll send you documents to sign, legal emancipation. You can tell anyone who asks that I've gone to live with extended family. I'll disappear from your lives. Permanently. Vernon looked pleased. Dudley just looked confused. And when those freaks from the magical world come asking, Vernon grunted. What do we tell them? That I left on my own. That I wanted freedom. And that you supported it. If the paperwork is in order, both magical and legal, they won't be able to do a thing about it. The Dursleys exchanged glances. Petunia said nothing. For the first time, she understood just how much they had broken Lily's son, and perhaps how little she had left of her own soul. Guilt began to worm its way in, but she said nothing. What did she say now? Vernon, on the other hand, looked like he had just been handed the keys to a dream life, one without Harry Potter. Dudley stayed silent. Most of it went over his head anyway. After a long pause, Petunia finally nodded. Fine, she said. Do what you need. Just go. Harry stood, calm and resolute. I will. He returned to the cupboard one last time. Hopefully the last time he'd ever sleep there. And as he lay on the thin mattress, he stared at the ceiling with a quiet anticipation. This life had stolen his childhood, but the next chapter, it would belong to him. Before we do any healing, I want photos and documentation copies for the case. Amelia told the healer. The healer understood. And since they were under oath anyway, she would not be able to tell anyone without permission. Next, we have an issue with his magic being weakened by the blood wards. They not only protected him from malicious wizards. Sure, that was their intended effect. But from the information I received from your aurors, the blood wards were warped to also weaken him. Since we discovered it this early, we can properly correct this and free his magic. But if he stayed there longer, it could have potentially made him several levels weaker than he should. If we are using Hogwarts levels, it's as if he should be as strong as his peers, but the wards made him 4 or 5 years below his actual level. At this point, Amelia could only grit her teeth. The crimes of Albus just keep piling up. Finally, his scar. I don't understand why this was not looked at from the night it happened, but this should have been properly checked. This contains very dark magic and needs to be looked at by a proper curse breaker. This should have been looked at years ago. Whoever was in charge of this boy needs to be sent to Azkaban, if you ask me. The healer was livid at how horrible their savior was left to suffer. "Thank you, Andromeda. Don't worry. We intend to ensure the offender pays for this," Amelia said. While Harry was being treated with potions, Amelia took Andromeda aside to talk to her. "Andy, I need to tell you something, but I want you to keep this between us. You can tell your family, but no one beyond that." Amelia started. Andromeda was surprised, but she gave her word and agreed. "Sirius Black may be innocent. We have received information that he might not have been what we were led to believe. We have gathered evidence, and we'll be getting him a trial soon." It turns out he never got a trial. Andromeda's thoughts stopped working. She was completely stunned. Sirius had been published in the Prophet as a traitor and imprisoned all these years, and now she learns he could have been innocent and never even gotten a trial. She was shocked and upset that she believed the Prophet and dismissed him. He had been in Azkaban for years now. She thought he was a traitor, and she, along with everyone else, turned their backs on him. How could they all face him now, knowing he was left there to rot? "Oh, Sirius, what have we done? We all have a lot to apologize to him for. So I suggest you get your thoughts together and be ready to make it up to him as well. We all made a mistake of leaving him alone without fighting to clear his name. We can only make amends when he gets out," Amelia said sadly. Amelia was also hurt. She was at one point in a possibly romantic relationship with Sirius back then, but the Potter massacre happened before it could actually take off. They have only gone on a few dates at that point. So it wasn't she had an obligation to defend him yet. And it didn't help that it was an extremely tense situation in the middle of a war. But she felt she could have at least cast some doubts on his favor. But it was too late now. Sirius had been in Azkaban for years. They talked more for a bit before she sent Harry home to rest. Since he was not supposed to be seen, they needed to get him home, and Andromeda would personally visit to regrow his bones. A lot of treatments were scheduled for Harry to correct his improper growth, including correcting his eyesight. His father was allergic to the potions needed for eye correcting, so he never took them. But Harry wasn't so. He could have his eyesight corrected later on. Since all of this can be done at home, they got it back to Bones Manor. They scheduled the scar inspection some other day. For the next few days, Harry did nothing but read books on wizarding culture and society while he was bedridden to regrow bones or take several potions to heal his body. He started studying about being an heir, his seat in Wisingamot, and all that pure-blood nonsense. Susan was there with him whenever he had questions, so it became a bit easier for him. The prolonged time with Susan made them closer. They were both orphans and did not have any brothers or sisters, so they started to see each other as siblings. Bones Manor. After a week's worth of being under potion treatments, Harry stood in front of a mirror looking at his new self. He was now a bit taller. He finally matched the proper height he should have had if he wasn't malnourished. For a kid his age, he was now among the taller ones. He also no longer needed his glasses, and he had a bit of muscle on him as a boy his age should have. Now that he was living in the wizarding world, he now had access to proper magic. While not himself personally just yet, it was now all around him. So he finally reactivated his focus. He used it to scan anything and everything that had magic and collect as much data as it could. Sometimes he even asked Amelia to show him some spells when they were having dinner. Nothing too big, just some everyday ones like Leviosa or Scourgify. He even asked some elves to show theirs. After compiling much data, his focus was able to isolate and determine how magic relates to its surroundings. His focus can now visually show him the magics around him in a form of visual representation through colors and holograms. He temporarily labeled magic particles as magicules and thought of them as if they were a sort of computer code or Lego's equivalent to rewriting the reality of the world or its rules. So by manipulating the magicules to act in a certain way, his focus would be able to help imitate effects of certain artifacts by showing him how the magicules should appear for his intended result. In order to test it out, he used the focus to record Amelia, using Leviosa to float a simple object like a cup. After visually showing how magicules react or move while the spell is being used, he tried to copy how the magicules are shaped and moved with his own magic wandlessly. In other words, it's like he was trying to copy someone else's sand art and making his own sand shape like that. He was doing all sorts of things to move the magicules he could see by doing different gestures or intent then shaping them like the target spell. Suffice to say, he was using his focus as a cheat code to copy the magicule structure of the final result, and he would copy it by moving his magic. After several tries, he was able to imitate the effect of Wingardium Leviosa and float a single piece of paper, which means in the future, if he can record a spell or charm being used, he can potentially imitate it with his own magic by copying how the magicules are shaped and move even without knowing the incantations. He figured incantations are more like keywords or titles made as a shortcut record of magicule shape and movement. Another way of looking at it was if he was using his focus to project a drawing or an artwork, and he would use his hands to merely trace over the image and copy the result. To an outside perspective, it was like he was drawing it, but to him, it was like tracing it. Next, he tried it with Reparo and was able to repair simple objects, not by casting the charm, but by copying how magicules move and interact. Playing around with simple spells, he can now use it wandlessly. He also made sure to remember how to do these as much as possible, so he isn't too dependent on visually seeing the spells every time he uses them. After all, he needed to memorize the feeling and intent so he can do it eventually without help. Magic has always been largely intent-based. The difference between him and everyone else is that he knows how the magicules move, not just the intent. So he has a lot more control as compared to a normal wizard who uses wandless entirely based on intent. With the intent-only based one, the energy is expended through intent, so it takes up more energy, but his method is like using intent as a guide only and using the magicule control to power through. So other wandless wizards use a lot more energy than he does. After getting the hang of it, he moved on to the next experiment. He had a self-ink refilling quill in front of him, and another normal quill next to it. He then tried to analyze all the magic embedded on the charmed quill and did his best to copy it onto the other quill. While he knew nothing of the runes on the artifact, he could still copy it onto the other item. It took him a few tries, but after fully copying it, the normal quill had become a self-ink refilling quill. This proved his theory that he can copy functions of other enchanted objects by copying how the magicules were arranged with his own. Though he suspects that more complicated artifacts would be harder to copy, it should still be somewhat possible. For the time being, he was limited to copying 1:1, but someday maybe he can understand what each charm or enchantment does, and maybe tweak and make changes eventually. He recorded the magicule shapes of the enchanted robes, so he had a record of which one did which. Then he thought of the Marauders map. If he can analyze it, he can probably copy the enchantments and functions onto another parchment. Further than that, if he can understand which enchantment does which, maybe he can even copy some of it onto his focus and hopefully create a mini map only he can see. That was his priority plan for when he meets the twin pranksters. After pondering for a while, Harry decided to check out his special trunk. He recorded all the enchantments on it for now. He initially wanted this so he could put a lot of supplies in it, but it was out of necessity. However, if he can copy the enchantments, maybe he could pick a few more cheaper trunks and copy the enchantments to all of them. Since it has been a while since he used his abilities, he decided to sneak out with Teleport real quick and buy a few cheap, unlabeled but sturdy trunks, ones that most Muggle-born students generally buy. After getting a few, he teleported back home with his jumper ability. After a few hours, he got the hang of copying enchantments onto the cheaper trunks. He not only copied the magicules, he also copied all the invisible runes and everything that made it more expensive. It did take a while to get right considering how the magicules looked layered, possibly due to the several enchantments on it. He now had a few extra trunks that he would probably sell to Muggle-born students for a few pounds instead of galleons, so that he had more Muggle money to spare. Most Muggle-born or Muggle-raised were limited on how much they could exchange in Gringotts, so Harry thought he could sell a few items to them in Muggle currency. Even he, as a technically considered a pureblood, was limited in converting to Muggle currency in order to avoid messing with the economy. So he would rather make items and sell it with Muggle currency instead. He did, however, run into a roadblock. It turns out, charms and enchantments are generally used on more natural products or items with close to natural materials, such as wood, leather, or parchment. If more artificial items were used, the enchantments tend to expire quicker. That's probably why these wizards use older items, as they are usually made from animals or plants. This means if he used magic to enchant a parchment and a modern sheet of paper, the parchment would last longer as it was less processed and a lot closer to natural materials, and paper usually goes through several chemicals. In order to make enchantments last, they use runes to lock the magic intent in place. So if he wanted to have modern Muggle clothing with enchantments, either he would have to add the enchantments regularly or mark them with runes of the equivalent function. As Harry does not know anything about runes, he can only add the enchantments regularly for now. He prioritized some antibacterial/cleanliness ones and temperature control. Since he was mostly recovered now from all the treatments for his malnourished body and eye correction, Harry was scheduled for being inspected by an unspeakable who focuses on curses. Harry also asked Amelia for some time to buy his daily clothing necessities, which he preferred to get from the Muggle side. Oh, for a privet drive, Little Whinging, Surrey, England, Great Britain. The Dursleys were unceremoniously woken up in the middle of one night by some loud banging on the front door. After Vernon opened the door with Petunia in tow, they were both tackled and pressed against the walls and handcuffed. What the bloody hell is the meaning of this? I demand you stop this at once, Vernon yelled. Petunia, however, was still barely awake and can hardly register what was happening. Vernon and Petunia Dursley, you are both under arrest for child abuse, neglect, and attempted murder. They both paled at that. They knew this was a possibility, but they tried their best to hide the signs. Before they could say anything else, the Bobbies were barging in, found the cupboard, and took photos of everything. Some of them were even looking sick with what they saw. How anyone could do such harm to a child was beyond understanding for them. They sent some men upstairs to wake up their son, as he also had charges against him. Though he would be tried as a minor, he was most likely going to be sent to a correctional facility as well. No. What's going on? Mummy, the fat child yelled. On the other side of the street, an Auror was watching as two Bobbies apprehended Arabella Figg and surrendered custody to the Auror. She was then taken to a holding facility for her part in child neglect. While she was not a guardian, she knew what was going on in the house and allowed it to happen, so she was to be tried as an accessory. The Muggles arranged for animal control to take her cats. In all likelihood, she will not be sent to Azkaban, but she will be locked up in a holding cell for possibly a few years for her part in this. By capturing Arabella Figg, Dumbledore just lost any warning he may have gotten that his plans have gone amok. He would have had his trinkets to warn him if he didn't knowingly ignored them out of his arrogance and belief that he could make no mistake. Harry was escorted by two Aurors and Amelia to the Department of Mysteries in the Ministry. Harry recalled some of the locations from the movies when the Death Eaters attack for the prophecy. Since he doesn't know if he will need it, he decided to map the Ministry using his focus, though it will only light up the areas he's been. While the focus can see a bit of his surrounding area, it's not going to be labeled as he's never been there yet. It will at least record the floor plans and directions. Madam Bones, to what do we owe the pleasure? Asked a man. Mr. Croaker, I have something I need you to look at. Amelia replied. Amelia then led Harry forward and asked him to remove his hat and part his hair. Saul Croaker cast several spells to properly identify the scar, its magic signature. After checking it out, Croaker was greatly troubled. Merlin's balls. This means... Croaker muttered. Well, out with it, man. Based on my initial spell scans, this Madam Bones is a very dark magic called a horcrux. In short, it is a soul fragment or a part of one's soul, forcefully separated from its main soul and generally locked on objects as anchors to our living realm. This means as long as the witch or wizard has one of these, their death will not be permanent. They can survive, but only barely as a form of a wraith who will need to possess others to survive. Such foul magic that would mutilate one's soul is the darkest of magic that to even think of it is. Croaker was very troubled as he spoke. See, could it be his? Amelia fearfully asked. There's no doubt, and based on these results, this is an unintentional horcrux. But if so, it means his soul is already so fragmented enough to make one unintentionally. I'm afraid this implies that there are more out there, said Croaker. So he's still alive then. Bloody hell, Amelia exclaimed. If you can call it that, sure. What do you mean? His body is lost based on the remains of that nursery in Godric's Hollow and the magic traces left that night. So he should be in wraith form that can only survive by possession. I am not certain yet of his possible methods to regain a body. We'll have to look into it, Croaker replied. However, our priority will have to be tracking these dark artifacts first. I don't think Britain can survive another war this fast. After all, even now, our society is still recovering with Death Eaters still running about. Yes, we need to track those remaining horcruxes. But what about Potters? Can you remove it? Amelia asked hopefully. It shouldn't be a problem. While it's never been performed on a human horcrux, it should be possible with the same rituals. Though I cannot guarantee if it will hurt or its side effects. After all, horcruxes are generally artifacts, not people. But in this case, instead of destroying it, we will need to transfer it to a crystal first so we can use it to track the rest. It would have been hard to track them down without a sample, but since we have one, this will be fairly straightforward. Croaker also added, right? Get the ritual going to remove it as soon as you can. The sooner we get that thing out of the boy's head, the better we can all sleep soundly. But I want this kept quiet. This is too big to announce. Until we obtain and destroy all of it, we keep it quiet, and only those who need to know will know. Harry, meanwhile, already expected most of this. If the unspeakable didn't have a way, he could have just followed the movie to get rid of it, albeit with great risk. This was a much better outcome. Suddenly, Harry realized he would need to test afterwards if he could still talk to snakes, or if it was indeed an ability that was temporary due to Riddle's soul fragment. So, I suppose that means we ignore the prophecy then? Croaker suddenly asked. What prophecy? Amelia asked alarmed. Croaker sighed. So, I take it Albus Dumbledore never told anyone. There's a prophecy that we assume is related to the Dark Lord and Potter. That rotten old man. Amelia sighed while gritting her teeth. What do you think, Harry? Do you want to hear it? Normally, I wouldn't consider it since you're but a boy. That said, you're more mature than your actual age because of your experiences. If you want to ignore it for now, we can do so. She asked Harry. Amelia explained to Harry what prophecies are and what it entails. It's fine. We can go listen to it, Harry said simply. A few minutes later, the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. But he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. SPT to APWBD Dark Lord and Harry Potter. Damn that bloody wanker. Amelia, gritting her teeth. So this is what the actual reason combined with the horcrux that Dumbledore kidnapped a boy to turn him into a weapon raised as a pig for slaughter? That bloody fool endangered our country because of a misguided belief in a bloody prophecy. Erg, if high blood pressure was a thing with witches and wizards, Amelia probably would have had an attack. Luckily, their constitution is supported by magic, so they were a bit more durable. As much as Amelia wanted to, she couldn't add this in the case against Dumbledore, since this was sensitive information that cannot be public until the entire war is over. So she would have to settle with making sure his machinations are mucked up. Well, I for one think this is way too open for interpretation. It could very well be acceptable for Mr. Potter to do the last blow, or if it was through the veil, we could simply have Mr. Potter push him in. It does not specifically say he needs to fight him, does it? Croaker asked. Sure, it does say something about powers the Dark Lord knows not, but nothing about using it. I reckon we can take care of this quietly, so long as we find the horcrux and destroy them all. Amelia thought for a bit, then spoke again. I want nothing to go wrong. Make sure all the personnel we assign to this task is under vows not to reveal anything. No mistakes. How long will it take to start the rituals to track the others? It takes time. I can't say for sure till we research everything about this to look for the relevant spells and rituals. Then let's remove this from Harry so you can secure our sample. Thus, the first horcrux was removed and surrendered to the unspeakables. Oh, London Selfridge's Muggle shopping mall. Harry was busy shopping for his basic needs from underpants, trousers, jackets, pajamas, and several casual and formal clothing. Of course, he felt Muggle attire was a lot more comfortable as a modern person, and old clothing like wizards generally were felt too archaic for him. The escorts were all so shocked and could barely contain themselves with all the new things they are seeing. The clothing options alone got them baffled. Since the wizarding world in Britain was centuries behind, seeing new fashion was an explosion to their senses. Then they came to electronic stores, and they might as well gone barmy. Harry, however, was still a bit bored, as this was still old technology for him. He didn't really buy any electronics. He can probably create more advanced one using his focus. Once the printers are built at least. For now, he was assessing the current level of technology. He was also observing the current fashion trends of this time period. He also bought raw cloth of different textures and colors. He wanted to make his own fashion. Doesn't matter if he looks weird in it, as long as he wanted it. He could even make some Jedi clothing and not care who stares or not. After getting most of what he needed, he bought some takeout for the Aurors and some for Susan and Amelia. Harry bought some Japanese dishes and a few Italian ones in case they don't like Japanese. Thankfully, wizards have better storage options with preservation spells cast by Aurors. After that, they went back home. Oh, welcome back, Aunt Amelia. You're just in time for supper. Harry got us some food from Muggle London. Susan exclaimed excitedly. While they were open to Muggle items and food, they weren't that familiar with foreign food. At least not Asian food. European food was still normal considering their neighbor countries. So it came as a pleasant surprise to try some Japanese food. Come try it. We have some ramen, some katsudon, tonkatsu, and some sushi. If you don't like those, we still have some pasta and pizza, said Harry. After trying each one out, they liked the Japanese food enough to store the Italian ones for another meal. This is brilliant. I didn't know Muggles had food this good. Susan was really excited. I agree. Maybe we should have Nancy learn the recipes or get more of these more often. I can't wait to try the Italian food tomorrow as well. Amelia was quite satisfied. It's like an explosion of flavors, so she was willing to have the house elf learn them. I do know how to cook some of these, so I can probably teach her. It's also good to have some variety for our food. The Dursleys never let me cook anything aside from British food, so I never got to try other food as well, but I heard it was good for what I saw on the telly. When you have some new food you want to try, you're definitely welcome to get us some as well. Susan giggled. For the first time in his new life, Harry was able to eat food he likes and share them with family over supper. Now that he had a bit of leeway in time, Harry decided to start learning. He got started on the things he needed to catch up on, like more wizarding culture, etiquette, and laws. Aside from that, he began to start reading up on transfiguration books and occlumency books from the Bones Library. While he was studying, whenever he was alone with no one in the library, he recorded books as much as he could with his focus. Everything he was allowed to touch, he recorded until all the books were now in his focus database. The Bones Library wasn't that big, but from a Muggle point of view, having this much was still quite impressive. Though, of course, this does not include family magic or restricted books for the Bones family. Now that he had all the books there recorded, he can start reading from wherever he was. His next target was the Black Library once he gets access. Oh, Ministry of Magic. Wizengamot is in session as usual in the Ministry. But today was anything but usual. Amelia was preparing to preset Sirius Black's case. This was also the day they had the papers print the Lord Black situation. In order to make sure the Wizengamot members didn't see the papers, they asked for the issue to be released late. Not very much, but just enough to let the members start before it goes out. Next case. Madam Bones, please go ahead, said Cornelius Fudge. Of course, Minister. Next case. Sirius Orion Black from the ancient and noble house of Black. Amelia spoke firmly. This raised a huge commotion with a lot of the members. What? Why are we revisiting this? He's been in Azkaban for years. Why wasn't I told about this? Madam Bones, what is the meaning of this? Fudge asked. He was very worried. For years Black had been imprisoned. He knew his current state, as Fudge regularly visited him to gloat and mock him whenever he was stressed. House Black has hired a solicitor to represent Mr. Black. Mr. Andrew Holland, please go ahead, Amelia said quickly. Thank you, Madam Bones. Witches and Wizards of Wisingamot, Sirius Black was imprisoned and sent to Azkaban the night of October 31st, 1981. He had been found at the scene and was accused of the death of 12 Muggles and 1 Peter Pettigrew, and accused of also betraying the Potters through giving the secret of the Fidelius charm. Andrew began. Several Wisangamot members tried talking, but Dumbledore silenced them, though he himself was a bit worried. Now to the heart of the matter. As per our wizarding laws, an accused cannot be held for more than 30 days without a formal trial. Andrew spoke clearly and firmly to get his point across. Hearing this, more commotion broke out. It was unheard of to have anyone, least of all, a member of an ancient and noble house, to be imprisoned without trial. As the ministry was indeed considered at wartime during the arrest period, our laws allow for the accused to be held captive longer, but cannot exceed a year, specifically 6 months at maximum. And it has been 4 years. Andrew paused for effect, then continued. As our laws dictate, the accused is to be officially released as no trial took place since the year allotted has passed. Magically and legally, he is not considered convicted of any crimes. He is clearly guilty. This cannot be allowed to happen. Lucius Malfoy exclaimed as he sat on the seat that was supposed to be for House Black. If Black is released, he would lose his only voting rights in Wisingamot, and also lose the inheritance of House Black. He had intended for it to go to his son Draco as the only heir remaining, but Sirius acquittal could see him lose that. He's right. We cannot allow a mass murderer go free. Fudge tried to follow up. Dumbledore wanted to refute as well, but he does not think he has any ground he can exploit at the moment. So he merely tried to follow up Fudge's concerns. Yes, I believe the minister's concerns are sound, he said. At this point, Andrew interjected as he saw an exploitable hole. If you people can ignore most, if not all, laws in favor of purebloods, why are you not doing so now? Last I checked, Sirius Black is indeed a pure blood and from an ancient and most noble house of Black. This was his attempt at poking against the pure blood ideology. No, this cannot be allowed. He's a criminal and a murderer. Tried Fudge one more time. According to whom? The evidence that was originally gathered on record for his arrest was circumstantial at best. This would have been properly refuted or verified had there been a trial. But there was not. So as it stands, legally, he is in fact not a murderer or a criminal. Perhaps we should reconsider. Dumbledore tried, but Andrew cut him off. I'm afraid that does not matter. Our ancient laws dictate that this has to be done. The magical laws prevent this body from going against it and ignore justice directly after the case has been brought up. There is not stopping this, as the situation falls under specific noted clauses. Now that it has been brought forth, going against it will see you lose your seats, said Andrew. Fudge tried one last time to prevent this, as he knew this could hurt his career, but then Andrew interjected once more. I also find it greatly troubling that our chief warlock can ignore such travesty of not even having a trial for a member of an ancient and noble house, when he can simply vouch for a marked Death Eater without so much as a fuss. Andrew added. This got Dumbledore some attention and whispers. While Andrew can go no further with his questioning, he knew it was enough to start planting doubts against the old man. He then took what was inside his coat and lay in front of the court. Sirius Black imprisoned without trial. Ministry cover-up? By Andy Smudgley. We at the Daily Prophet received anonymous letters stating that accused mass murderer Sirius Black, arrested for the death of 12 Muggles and 1 Peter Pettigrew, attributed to have betrayed the Potters, was in fact imprisoned and had never gotten a proper trial. It is with great displeasure for us to confirm, after our own investigation, that he had indeed never gotten a trial, even after all these years. How can this be, dear readers, when even accused Death Eaters still get trials, and even one vouched for by Dumbledore himself, yet a pure blood from the ancient and noble house of Black never got one? This goes against our very wizarding laws to a right of trial. Is it possible that he is even innocent? After all, if Mr. Black was guilty, would it not be easy enough to get a proper conviction of his crimes in a trial? According to wizarding laws established since the time of Merlin, since Mr. Black was not given trial within 30 days or 6 months if in wartime, his imprisonment becomes illegal and he is declared free to go. Will the Ministry of Magic let him go or keep him imprisoned? It is very troubling to consider that a member of an ancient and noble house can be imprisoned like this. If this is the new process, what hope do we common witches and wizards do and hope for? Please see page 3 for more details. I'm sure this has reached a lot of people by now. If you do not allow our laws to be followed, I'm certain the wizarding world will have words to say to you, Minister. Fudge was stunned and unable to speak. Even his overly aggressive undersecretary could not find any words, since this could seriously hurt their reputations and could see them mobbed by countless wizards locally and internationally. While the prophet was only within Britain, several other countries still keep an eye on things in the UK despite all the rubbish being printed in the papers. So they had no choice but to let this play out. Normally, it would be difficult to even get this published by the prophet, since Fudge usually pressures the publication to print his propaganda and lies. However, it is currently at peacetime, and with the prophet not having any big news or scandals recently, they took this story to poke the hornet's nest. Regardless of our political or moral opinions, the moment this case was brought in front of this official Wizengamot session, our laws has forced him to be freed. But in the interest of clearing his name, the accused has agreed to be questioned under Veritaserum. However, let me reiterate that this is no longer a trial, but merely a questioning. Even if the accused is or is not actually guilty, our laws have secured his freedom already. Andrew reminded them. Amelia then had Aurors bring Sirius Black in, who was grinning as he finally had his moment. He knew he had paid for his failure already through the years in Azkaban. He was brought in without any chains and was wearing a proper suit and long coat he loved wearing. He was allowed a quick shower and change of clothes right before the session. Dumbledore was inwardly panicking. He had to prevent this, but as Sirius was already declared free, he knew he had no law he can lean on to prevent this. Even if he regularly broke several laws to suit his purposes, he cannot openly break them, least of all in front of the Wizengamot. After Veritaserum was administered, Andrew began his questioning. Please state your full name. Sirius Orion Black. They did several more questions to ensure the Veritaserum was working, and thus began the revelations. At the night of October 31st, 1981, did you betray the Potters by revealing the location as secret keeper of the Fidelius charm? He asked. No. This alone got a few whispers already. They have not gone far yet, but this statement alone already proved his innocence. When you were apprehended, you were found laughing and crying at the same time, while muttering, "I killed them." Can you explain why? Andrew asked. This was a very important question to deny his original allegations in the first place. Because I told James to switch the secret keeper to Peter instead of me. I thought it would be too obvious, so I chose to be a decoy. I felt that my choice got them killed, so I blame myself. Sirius replied, still speaking in a very trance-like state. Just to be clear, are you saying you were not the secret keeper? I am not. Can you tell us what actually happened that night? When I got to Godric's Hollow, I saw Hagrid holding on to young Harry. I tried to take him, but Hagrid denied me. Said Sirius. Hold on. Why would you let Hagrid deny you the boy? As James' best friend, would you not have more authority to take the boy? I hardly think this is important. Maybe we can skip. Dumbledore tried. No, this is important. Please answer, Mr. Black. Andrew said in a firm, no-nonsense voice. He said he was under Dumbledore's orders. Said Sirius. So our chief warlock decided to give orders to a half-giant keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, who, I must remind this body, is not allowed a wand or to do magic due to certain circumstances. Please take note of this statement, as we will come back to this later. Andrew hinted. Dumbledore felt a chill, but he could not do anything for the time being, but hoped this would be forgotten. Mr. Black, what happened afterwards? I tried to go after the rat to make him pay. Who is this rat, and why do you refer to him as so? Andrew asked despite knowing the answer, just to have this knowledge out. Peter Pettigrew. He's a rat animagus. I ran after him, and he caught me off guard. He disarmed me, triggered an explosion via gas lines from a muggle home, and cut off his own finger before transforming into his rat animagus form to escape. Sirius continued further. I was laughing and crying because the weakest among us caught me off guard, and I felt this could have been avoided if I had not chosen to switch secret keepers. As the testimony was almost over, Andrew pulled a quick one. And who was the person who cast the Fidelius charm? He asked. Before Dumbledore could say anything, Sirius had already answered. Albus Dumbledore. So you mean to say, Dumbledore knew you were not the secret keeper the whole time? He asked quickly. Yes. This broke into another commotion. This meant Dumbledore knew the whole time, but did nothing. Please note once more, as we will be going back to this again later. Let the official record show that Albus Dumbledore knew the whole time, but allowed Mr. Black to be imprisoned for years, said Andrew. This statement was now bearing down on Dumbledore. There were more whispers considering their doubts on him. After the antidote for the Veritaserum was given, Sirius was allowed to step back as his part was now done. As you can see, ladies and lords of Wisingamot, Mr. Black is completely innocent of all accused crimes and was deliberately left rotting in Azkaban by Albus Dumbledore. For now, I would like to put forth another case connected to this one. Amelia had Aurors bring in a stunned man in shackles. After he was brought to the stand, this earned gasps all around. The reporters in the audience were furiously noting everything down. There was so much happening in this session that they knew this was going to be big. The real culprit of the crimes accused of Mr. Black, Peter Pettigrew, as he is still currently legally dead. We are technically able to question him under Veritaserum forcefully. Peter was freaking out the moment he was awakened. He was in the middle of Wisingamot in chains. He saw Sirius and tried to call out, "My friend, please help me. I was forced by the Dark Lord." He tried in a desperate plea. Sirius remained silent, but deep down he wanted nothing but to kill the rat. It took him a lot of willpower to hold himself steady. "State your name." Andrew told Peter. "Peter John Pettigrew. Were you the secret keeper of the Fidelius charm for the Potter home in Godric's Hollow?" "Yes." Murmurs resounded in the courtroom. "Did you knowingly betray the Potters?" "Yes." "Why?" "I was weak and I was afraid. I wanted to join what I thought was the winning side." Sirius was inwardly in sorrow. After all these years, he still couldn't believe he would betray them like this. "So you are officially a Death Eater? What happened after you told the Dark Lord the location?" "Yes. He ordered Bellatrix Lestrange to go after the Longbottoms while we went to the Potters. The Dark Lord got there ahead. After he killed James and Lily, he tried to kill the boy. I was outside. All I could hear was Lily screaming to spare the child. This brought tears to a lot of people, especially those who were close to the Potters. Then what happened? There was a bright green light. When I entered the house, the Dark Lord was gone. Only the boy remained with Lily on the ground dead. I took the Dark Lord's wand and ran until Sirius caught up to me. Please note that the wand in question is entered into evidence as it was held by the accused upon reverting back from animagus form. To ensure safety, Madame Bones has ordered the wand be snapped in two, but entered as evidence for identification purposes. Andrew showed the wand that they took from Peter after he was reverted back to human form. They snapped it since they didn't want to take any chances. Did you kill the 12 muggles that night, and why? Yes. They were to a distraction to frame Sirius, so I could escape. Since you confirmed you were a Death Eater, do you have a dark mark? Yes. Show it. He then proceeded to show his left arm, and more gasps were heard. Now was an opportune moment. Andrew sneaked in a question that would bring further chaos. Can one be imperious to obtain the dark mark? Before Lucius could interject, the question was already answered. No, it can only be obtained willingly. This brought Wisingamot into panic. Several members claimed to be imperious to avoid Azkaban. At this moment, several Aurors came in under Madame Bones. They all stood near all those who were known to have dark marks within Wisingamot. "Silence!" Chief Warlock Dumbledore exclaimed. While he is in the hot seat for his part in Sirius incarceration, he thought this was a good distraction to make people forget his part and focus on this instead. It hindered his plans to have those with the dark mark incarcerated because it will implicate his spy Severus Snape. But at this point, choosing his own safety, he chose to try and focus on this to redirect the attention. In this momentary silence, Andrew decided to continue to capitalize on the moment. How does one obtain the dark mark, And why can it only be obtained willingly? And before Lucius could object, as he was panicking and stunned, wait. He tried, but Pettigrew answered once more. One has to commit murder in front of the Dark Lord. It was integral to bind the mark. Unless willing murder was committed, the mark would not take. It was part of the ritual. Pettigrew replied. At this point, Madame Bones ordered all Aurors on site to apprehend all those in Wisingamot who were known to have had dark marks, but claimed to be imperious. They were dragged out of the court to be tried at another date. They already lost credibility the moment they were apprehended, so there was no sense keeping them here. Minister Fudge was now having almost severe panic attacks. He was taking bribes from Lucius, and it was well known to the public how close he was to the man. Now that it has been revealed that he was guilty of at least a minimum of one murder, he knew this will endanger not just his current career, but now any future positions could be harmed. For those of the light side, this was very good news. This was a chance to rid the Wisingamot and potentially the ministry of known Death Eaters. It was an open secret of who they were, but escaped legal ramifications by claiming Imperius' curse and providing bribes. Now, they were to be apprehended. For the Grey or the Neutrals, it was still good news since the Dark were mostly pro-Dark Lord, and denying allegiance to the Dark Lord back then was still rather dangerous. Removal of Death Eaters mean they would have more safety to pursue their interests without retaliation from the Death Eaters. As this was happening, Dumbledore was now planning in his head if he can still keep Severus as a spy if he was a lost cause. Before we end the questioning for Mr. Pettigrew, I would like to ask a final question. He began, Mr. Pettigrew, do you know why the Dark Lord came after the Potters? If so, tell us the reason. While the rest of the Wisingamot members did not think anything of this, Dumbledore was even more worried. He was a little slow to react since he was planning what to do about Snape. A prophecy was relayed to the Dark Lord by Snape. He told the Dark Lord of a boy who was destined to vanquish him. The Dark Lord went after the Potters to kill the boy. Dumbledore immediately tried to end this. This was a lot more than he can afford to publicize. However, he could not help but notice the Wisingamot members are not curious about the prophecy. I think we have all we need to convict Mr. Pettigrew, he said, pretending to be calm. Please note that we have all we need to declare without any doubt that Peter Pettigrew is a Death Eater and the real culprit of the accusations towards Mr. Black. I would like to ask that all awards and titles given to Peter Pettigrew's name be transferred to Mr. Black as rightfully so, and move to call a vote for Mr. Pettigrew's verdict. Needless to say, Peter Pettigrew was sentenced to life in Azkaban. All awards and titles, such as Order of Merlin that they awarded to Peter, was transferred to Sirius. However, life in Azkaban was not enough. Sirius was still in turmoil. Why would you choose to betray us? We were family. We treated you like our brother. Sirius asked Pettigrew, while the rest of Wisingamot simply allowed this, as he had this right to face the reason he was imprisoned for so long. I was afraid. I'm not like all of you. I'm not as good in fighting. They cornered me. What would you have me do? Pettigrew tried. Then you should have died than betray your family. We would have died for you. Sirius shouted with tears in his eyes. Andrew then spoke once more to give a few more facts. I would like to push for Dementor's kiss for Pettigrew. Isn't that excessive? We already have him caught. What else is there he can do? Asked Dumbledore, still pretending to be an understanding old man. I would like to ask Madame Bones to please state where Pettigrew was apprehended. Andrew replied. He was in his Ratanimagus form, pretending to be a family pet of a pure-blood family. Said Amelia. What does this have to do with anything? Umbridge asked as Fudge was still too stunned and planning how to fix his falling reputation after this fiasco. Since the accused has been pretending to be a pet for all these years, who knows how many family secrets he has learned. In order to protect the pure-blood family from the information being used against them, I'm asking for a vote to get him Dementor's kiss or the veil instead on their behalf. And thus, Pettigrew was sentenced to a Dementor's kiss. While most of the members did not care that much what happened to Pettigrew, they agreed that a pure-blood family's secrets should be kept as it could be used against them. A few minutes later, the Dementor arrived and slowly went towards Pettigrew. And no, Sirius, please, help me. I don't want to die. No, At the last moments before his death, his memory of James and Lily's death resurfaced. He heard the cries of Lily just as the Dark Lord killed her. At his last moment, he finally regretted betraying his friends. But it was too late. Then he was gone. Peter Pettigrew was kissed, and the soulless body was transferred to Azkaban until it naturally died. They also announced that Sirius will be compensated for each year he was imprisoned beyond the 1-year limit. Sirius was then sent to St. Mungo's for some long-term recovery plan to heal him of all the damage due to long-term exposure to Dementors. It was even a miracle that he was even sane. But before they could end session, much to Dumbledore's disappointment, Andrew reminded them of his actions and continued still. "I'm afraid we're not done yet. We would like to bring forth another case, this time against Albus Dumbledore. As such, I would like to call forth a replacement chief warlock to avoid conflict of interest." Dumbledore was forced to step aside and was made to stand in the accused box. Augusta Longbottom was called upon as temporary chief. "What are the charges?" Augusta asked. "Child kidnapping, child neglect, accessory to child abuse, child endangerment, abuse of authority." Andrew listed several charges against him, which shocked the entire Wisengamot. "These are very serious accusations, Mr. Holland," Augusta advised. Dumbledore was livid. There were enough charges to get him a Dementor's kiss if he was not careful with this. But upon thinking further, these charges could only mean one thing. They found Potter. Dumbledore thought to himself. Now, he needed to not only get out of these charges, but also make sure they return the boy back to the Dursleys. He considered what he thinks he must do for the greater good. "I would like to begin with the prophecy made by one Sybil Trelawney to Albus Dumbledore himself." Before Andrew could continue further, Dumbledore panicked and tried to censor the topic. "Objection! This is very sensitive information that must not get out," Dumbledore exclaimed. "Mr. Dumbledore, Mr. Holland has not even begun with the details yet. If indeed this is very sensitive information, then we will have Mr. Holland only refer to the prophecy, but not mention its details or contents. Is this acceptable?" Augusta asked. Dumbledore could only nod for now, but he knew it must not be released, as it could not only implicate him further, but also tip off the Death Eaters at Potter's value. "As I was saying, a prophecy was made to Dumbledore himself. I will not relay its contents, but it however related to a child born at the end of July and the Dark Lord. At the time, there were 2 children that fit the description, Potter and Longbottom." At this, even Augusta was surprised. She did not know her grandchild was connected to all this. Now she had a stake in this case. She intended to see all the information through. As the only people present at the time, according to our records, was the seer and who heard it, it should have only been the witness who knew of this outside the Department of Mysteries. In this case, Dumbledore himself alone. Andrew let that sink in for a bit, then continued. "It is a fact we established earlier that the Dark Lord came after the Potters because of this, which we can infer that also caused the Death Eaters going after the Longbottoms as well. But we must ask, how then could Severus Snape even learn of the prophecy to relay to the Dark Lord? For the record, it has to be said that Mr. Dumbledore has vouched for Severus Snape despite being a marked Death Eater. So this implies that Snape was told of the prophecy or overheard it somehow, which in turn becomes the sole reason why the Dark Lord even came after both families in the first place. This fact was starting to sink into all of them. Augusta herself was livid. Now she's learning that her son and daughter-in-law was tortured into a coma because of said prophecy. Thinking about it, it does certainly imply that Dumbledore was in fact the failure point and the possible cause of this result. While everyone there knew that prophecies were real, they also knew that most are open to interpretation and that a lot of them even go on unfulfilled for a long time. For Dumbledore to even depend on it is such a travesty that directly caused the Potters and Longbottom's fate. But at the moment, they did not have enough information, so they needed to continue. The events then played out as we have all heard. The Potters were murdered, the Dark Lord missing and presumed dead, while the boy remains alive to this day. This is where most of the charges come from. He continued. Dumbledore is being charged with being an accessory to murder and death of the Potters due to leaking of the prophecy, conspiracy, and illegal apprehension and incarceration of Sirius Black, via keeping quiet that he was the one who cast the Fidelius charm and knew who the secret keeper was, and kidnapping the baby Harry Potter through Rubius Hagrid. Sending him off to a place the Ministry was never told. Objection. I had Hagrid take the boy for his own safety. How can it be kidnapping? Dumbledore interjected. Augusta and the members of Wisingamot looked to Andrew. While we understand the need for his security, it is still kidnapping considering Hagrid was ordered by Dumbledore to take the boy instead of surrendering him to either authorities or his legal and magical guardian, Sirius Black. I would like to remind this body that we have procedures to follow in these cases. But the process was not followed at all. Wartime or not, you do not take orphan babies and make decisions on your own. Andrew answered, Why are you saying that it was not followed? Asked by some of those who support Dumbledore. Because if it was, then Sirius Black would not have been imprisoned in the first place. Andrew specified, Normally, when a child is orphaned, the child should have been surrendered to either the next living kin, relative, or child wizarding protection after investigation is done by Aurors. At worst, the boy should have been sent to a temporary living situation under the protection of the Ministry until the parents will have been read. Andrew was about to continue, but Dumbledore tried to interject once more. Objection, he started. He knew his name would be brought up about he will being sealed, so he tried to spin it in a different way. Sirius Black was apprehended shortly, so I had the boy hidden immediately. It would have been dangerous to hand the boy over to Sirius Black if he was the betrayer. That does not make sense, Mr. Dumbledore. If the process was followed, the boy should have been under the protection of the Ministry while the will was read, after which it would have been learned that Sirius Black was innocent because the will contained the details which state Pettigrew as the secret keeper. It would have also named Sirius Black as the boy's legal and magical guardian, as he was named, and taken oath as his godfather. In the first place, you knew that. You knew that he was not even the secret keeper. This got people into a commotion. If Black was under oath as the godfather, it would have been physically impossible for him to betray the Potters, as magic would prevent him from causing harm to the boy, even indirectly, like having his parents killed. This fact was realized by the entire Wisingamot, and thus Dumbledore lost this particular charge. Then why was the will not read? Even if Dumbledore took the child, the process should have been followed still. Augusta asked. According to Madame Bone's investigations, the copy of the will in the Ministry was sealed by Dumbledore himself. Meanwhile, the copy at Gringotts was never read because Dumbledore claimed himself as the magical guardian of the boy and again abused his authority and influence to seal that as well. We were only able to get a copy because the boy was allowed to inspect the Potter Vault despite not having full access to it or taking anything out until he reaches legal age. After a bit of deliberation, Augusta declared that the illegal incarceration for Sirius, kidnapping charge, and the abuse of authority had enough evidence, and Dumbledore got a guilty majority vote. The accessory to Potter death lacked more definitive evidence that the Dumbledore supporters were able to clear him of that. As they still had a few more charges to go through, Augusta ordered a few hours break to have the records pulled for the Potter will, as well as notifying the parties involved if they could come. While the trial was on temporary break, Albus Dumbledore was locked in a holding facility as he was the one being tried. They took the wand from him as procedure before the trial started, so he was currently unarmed. He was very angry that his plans are being derailed and that he is currently without his Elder Wand. Little did he know, he would not be able to obtain it again. Oh, flashback a few hours ago. Little did anyone know, while this was going on, Harry ordered the Bones Elf to take back the invisibility cloak from Dumbledore's office. As the object was a family heirloom and magically and legally owned by Harry, the elf could simply take it back as magic allowed. The elf quickly sneaked into Hogwarts and simply took the cloak and returned it to Harry. Normally, elves cannot simply take objects like this from somebody, but the cloak was both legally and magically Harry's. And since his assumption that it would have been in the headmaster's office was correct, it was fairly easy to have an elf take it. And the elf could simply waltz into Hogwarts considering Dumbledore did not have the wards block them. Harry thought it was quite stupid and arrogant of wizards to not even consider the elves and assume them beneath witches and wizards. So not many people truly have ward against elves. Generally, Hogwarts would have been warded against even them, but Dumbledore has repeatedly altered the wards to allow several things, like his pet Death Eater and other illegal tracking wards for Harry. His actions not only allowed dark artifacts, but also disabled the anti-bullying wards that prevent offensive spells being targeted at fellow students. After obtaining the cloak, Harry sneaked into the Ministry to follow Madame Bones to the trial room. He didn't really need to go in, so he was tailing from a decent distance to avoid being detected. The cloak, after all, was quite powerful, but he wanted to be on the safe side. Harry stayed by the entrance to watch the proceedings from there. There was only one reason for him to be there at this time. He waited for Dumbledore to surrender the Elder Wand while he was being questioned. Since Dumbledore thought he could get away with it, he voluntarily surrendered the wand, not thinking anything of it. This was Harry's target. After the wand was given to an Auror temporarily, Harry waited for an opportune moment. His moment came when they were talking about the kidnapping. Since most of the members were currently agitated, Harry reckons they were all too distracted to notice him, stealing the wand using his TK. He did it as slow as he could to avoid quick movements, and only made them when everyone was chaotic. After much suspense, the wand was safely in his hands, and he had quietly gone out and jumped back home. While this meant he had obtained the Elder Wand, he did not necessarily think he was its master just yet. But for some reason, it felt natural to him. After much pondering, he realized that the wand changed its allegiance after he took the wand without anyone knowing. After all, some of the transfers of the wand throughout history were from thefts as well. Like when Gellert Grindelwald stole the wand from Gregorovitch at dead of night. While he did not stun Dumbledore like Grindelwald did, he was the main mastermind of the trial. It shouldn't be enough, but he thought maybe his being a descendant of the Peverils had something to do with it. In flashback, Remus Lupin was in the middle of his temporary job when he received a letter from the Ministry. He opened the letter, and after reading it, he was confused, surprised, angry, and sad at the same time. The letter told him that he was to make his way to the Ministry for the court proceeding of Albus Dumbledore. He was not called as a witness, but only called in for the Potter will. He was friends with James, Lily, Sirius, and Peter, and after all that's happened, he wanted to get away from it all. But he thought to himself, why now? How is it that the will is only being read today? He asked Dumbledore a few times over the years to see James' son, but he was always denied and was told it was not safe. He also tried to search for him a few times in secret, but the blood wards were preventing him. He did not immediately understand the implications of the will not being read before. So he immediately dropped everything he was doing, advised his temporary employer he was called to the Ministry, and then left. Several people were surprised as well that the Potter will was only now being read. People like Minerva McGonagall and Phileas Flitwick were all heading towards the Ministry at haste. They knew something was wrong. McGonagall left Sprout temporarily in charge. Though Snape was indeed apprehended, as he was known to carry the mark and was mentioned in the trial earlier, he was still brought to the Ministry for the will, even if he was in cuffs. Since Frank and Alice Longbottom were in a coma, it fell on Augusta to represent them. Neville was also called upon despite being still a child. Since Pandora Lovegood was still alive, she was also called. A few days have passed since the trial, and the public has since gone into a bit of a chaos. After learning Black was innocent, the trust in the Ministry has dropped. Cornelius Fudge was feeling the pressure. He thought he was inheriting the position of Minister of Magic and breeze through the easy parts since he started his career as the war ended. But it turns out he was to clean up after the previous minister's mistakes. Though he was a part of those mistakes, that didn't come through his mind. He started his campaign with the arrest of Black, so he was also implicated for the injustice. But as a very corrupt politician, he was able to divert attention and somewhat put all the blame on the previous minister. With the Black trial, it practically put fire on his ass and opened a can of worms. Pettigrew was captured and the truth was revealed. The fact that they put an innocent man in prison for years seriously put a dent in his image. At the time of Black's arrest, He was part of the people who could have uncovered the truth with a bit of investigation, but he and several others slacked off and thought it was an easy conclusion due to Black's delirious mutterings of "I killed them." They did not follow proper procedure and simply chucked him off to Azkaban and prioritized looking good in front of the press for his campaign. This not only harmed the Ministry's image and his competence, but also made them look like a joke because of the order of Merlin given to what is now known as a Death Eater and traitor. Now, the Ministry is forced to pay remunerations to Black for his years in Azkaban and would need to somehow rebuild trust with the public. Luckily for him, aside from Black's situation, there was another issue he could use as a redirect. Albus Dumbledore kidnapping case. He could put more focus on him so he could save his own image. Dolores Umbridge advised him to prioritize Dumbledore's case in the papers so he could remove some of the public's distrust from him. And thus, the Daily Prophet came out with the details of the trial for Sirius Black, saying he was innocent, which caused him to lay low for a bit and try to appear very busy. But the next few days, he had his Undersecretary Umbridge send directives to the Prophet to print about Dumbledore's trial. As Dumbledore was considered the leader of light, his case was more sensational and indeed redirected the public's ire. Albus Dumbledore, kidnapped boy who lived. As the title read, the Daily Prophet then told of the details and the result of the trial. The public was quite surprised, to say the least. Their leader of light had kidnapped their savior and threw him to Muggles who, if the prophet is to be believed, had harmed and abused the boy who lived. At this point, the public had celebrated the vanquishing of the Dark Lord and practically revered Harry Potter as a hero. It also didn't help that several publications produced books that rode the fame of the boy who lived and wrote of his so-called adventures. Since this was a mere 5 years from Voldemort's defeat, Harry Potter's name was still in an all-time high popularity. The books of his adventures were in proper circulation, and his fame was kept in the public's memory. Now that they heard of their savior's actual living conditions, this brought so much outrage. Why was their savior being treated harshly and not living like a prince? Why was he living with Muggles? The boy's fame alone would have thousands of families willing to take him in, together with his inheritance as the last living heir of an ancient and noble house. There is no shortage for people willing to raise him if need be. But learning he was sent to abusive Muggles would have caused thousands to march into the Ministry to claim his guardianship, if not for Sirius Black being declared innocent. Not to mention the dark families who want to obtain the boy for either revenge for their master or the greedy ones who would do anything to obtain his wealth. For the light and neutral families, this whole situation brought doubt in the leader of light. It was unbelievable that Dumbledore was announced as a kidnapper and convicted of several crimes, including his part in the Black incarceration. Because of this, Albus Dumbledore lost a lot of allies. Then he lost more to call on favors to reduce his sentence. Despite this, though, there were still several families who still somewhat follow and believe in him, like some members of the Order of the Phoenix. For those mentioned in the Potter will, the trust they had for said leader of light was lost and broken. They would now keep an eye out for the old goat. But for the rest of the public, it certainly meant that Dumbledore was no longer the man they all looked up to and revered. His name no longer had so much weight. As for the Wisengamot members with the Dark Mark, they were all quietly tried and arrested. Their arrest did not make the papers since the minister tried to bury that fact, so his name would not be implicated much due to his friendship with Malfoy. Even though it was not mentioned in the papers, it was still rather noticeable that several upstanding members of their society were no longer seen in the public. Because of this, the families of those Death Eaters were now in full damage control. Some wives were trying to claim they had no part in their husband's actions, so they would not be arrested, and some even tried to divorce. Among those who claimed they had no part of their husband's actions were families of Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, and Nott. They kept their names in order to retain their vaults and wealth, though there is no telling if they will forsake the Death Eater Association or merely distance themselves to avoid prosecution. For Harry, this was a welcome change, since this would mean that Death Eater children would be a little less aggressive by the time they come to Hogwarts. They would not be able to flaunt their names too much due to the incarceration of their fathers. Harry also thought this would make sure Draco would not be able to flaunt his usual line, "My father will hear about this." This gave him a mild chuckle to wonder how he will justify his actions without dear old Death Eater Dad. As for the rest of Hogwarts staff, this came to a huge surprise and a bit of anger towards the headmaster. More so for Minerva McGonagall. She was after all present in the now dubbed kidnapping of Harry Potter, since she was there when Albus left him in the Dursleys' doorstep. She was rather upset that their actions were in fact illegal. She never thought to consider that Albus did not notify proper authorities in child protection and merely assumed because he was Albus Bloody Dumbledore. Now she realized she was blinded by his positions and titles. Little did anyone know, this realization would bring forth a huge change in her future actions. She would now start questioning everything the old goat tells her. For the time being, she was advised by the Board of Governors that she will be the temporary headmistress until Dumbledore returns. While it would be logical to fire him, it was still an undeniable fact that Albus was among the strongest wizards of their time. So it would be a waste to lose him as protection for the school. But Minerva was advised that he will be put on probation after his release in a few years' time. She was also told of the restraining order filed by Mr. Holland for Harry Potter. This meant she would have additional responsibility to be present if the old goat would need to talk to Potter. For the next few years, she would be the headmistress and run the school, though she realizes that she already does that. It was only now that she realized nothing changed. As it turns out, there was very little that Dumbledore actually did for the school. He had made her do all the work. Because of this, she decided that once the old goat returns, she would limit her own work to her actual responsibilities and make sure the old goat would do his own bloody work. On a more personal note, the Will reading reminded her how close she was to the Potters, and she realized how she failed her former students for neglecting their son. So she swore to herself that she would make sure that when the boy comes for his first year, she would make sure she would be there for the boy. The same was said for Flitwick, as he also used to be close to the Potters. While he was less personal and more of a mentor type, he realized he could have at least checked in on his former student's son to ensure his safety. For Hagrid, who had heard of the situation through hearsay while he was in a pub, his loyalty was tested. He began having doubts. He was also asked by a few Aurors, but they did not arrest him as it was determined that he was merely following Dumbledore. But because of this whole situation, he started harboring doubts regarding Dumbledore. He never considered that he was actually kidnapping Harry and merely thought he was rescuing him. But because he was given a job in Hogwarts despite his record, he thought Dumbledore should be given a chance, so he remained on Dumbledore's side, but he will need to apologize to Harry once he starts his schooling. As for the Weasleys, who had been one of his main supporters, it came as a shock that not only was their leader of light a kidnapper, it was even a bigger shock that their savior was treated so horribly. By then, they had been raising the youngest and only daughter with the Harry Potter books, so reading about his real life had greatly affected them. They had not even considered how much fiction they had been reading about him. They merely thought that the books were just exaggerating a bit and not outright lying about his actual living conditions. This revelation brought a bit of an impact in how they raised Ginny. Now, they would consider slowly expressing to their daughter that the books are fictional. Just like how Muggles would slowly tell their children about fairy tales and similar books are fiction, they would now start to tell theirs that the Potter books are simply made up. Little did anyone know, this would be the beginning of the huge drop in the sales of the Harry Potter books. Up until that point, everyone simply assumed they were exaggerated books, but now everyone would realize they were complete fiction. This also started several waves of wizards and witches asking for refunds. As for Harry Potter himself, he began instructing Andrew to start looking into suing the publishers and authors of the so-called Harry Potter books. Sirius was told of the will, his guardianship of Harry, and was scheduled for a visit from the boy in the next few days. He was both happy to finally meet the boy, but also dreading what to say since he still somewhat blamed himself of James and Lily's fate. Remus quit his job and immediately visited Sirius. He was, after all, given enough money to live even without work. James was rather generous with how much he left him. He always knew how much hardship his furry friend was going through as a werewolf. This was his way of improving his life. It wasn't as if it put a dent in the Potter wealth anyway. Padfoot, Mooney. Remus approached his friend as he was allowed in the room at St. Mungo's. He hugged his friend as he shed tears for what he went through. "I'm so sorry. I didn't believe in you. I should have known," he said. "Forget about it. It was a dark time for us. We all thought you were the spy. I'm also sorry for thinking it was you." Sirius told his friend. "To think we were all wrong and was that rat the whole time. I blame myself, you know. I kept telling myself if I didn't ask James to switch the secret keeper to Wormtail, maybe they would still be alive. Still, I should have been there. I would have noticed the lack of a trial. But it was too painful. I thought I lost all my friends. Dumbledore should have asked for a trial." Remus replied with tears. "Bloody Dumbledore vouching for Snivellus, and he gets off without so much as a fine, and I get left in Azkaban without a trial for years. That was definitely intentional for him to be able to get control over Harry. And all this for a bloody prophecy. I tried to meet him, you know, and Dumbledore kept saying it wasn't safe. And I was too blind to a fault of my loyalty towards him. I should have pressed him more to meet Harry, to check up on him." Remus blamed himself for not putting more effort into meeting young Harry. "I still don't know what to say to him. After reading about how he was treated, it made me realize I should have stayed with him instead of going after the rat. I assumed Dumbledore would keep him safe." Sirius was angry and not only for the switch of Secret Keeper, but now also about his allowing Harry to be taken by Hagrid under Dumbledore's orders and reading about his horrible treatment. "Since you were given guardianship, we need to make it up to Pronkslet. We already lost so much time and much of his childhood." Both men talked about their plans to make it up to Harry. Sirius also expressed his desire to talk to the goblins about his properties, as he didn't really know the state of House Black. But they both agreed to prioritize Harry, since they would not be pressed for money anyway. A few days later, Sirius and Remus finally met young Harry. But they were both surprised to say the least. He didn't talk like a child. He seemed a lot more mature than he should be. This brought a bit of a misunderstanding. They thought this was due to his abuse, that he had to grow up quickly, mentally speaking. For Harry, he completely forgot he was supposed to be a kid since he was busy planning for the future. He has so much on his mind that he completely ignored his own age. The Marauders didn't talk about it and just went with it, so Harry never noticed. Remus and Sirius talked a bit about James and Lily and told Harry some of their pranks and misadventures. It was a decent first meeting considering. They were rather relieved that Harry could still somewhat laugh and express joy. They thought Harry was traumatized, resulting his mature way of speaking, but glad he could smile and laugh. For Harry, though, he was simply hearing about people he never met yet related to. Unlike what the fictional character Harry Potter would have felt, he was a reincarnator. He wasn't strictly speaking a child inside. He wasn't lacking or craving proper affection and guidance. To a normal abused child, he would probably be craving any affection, love, and recognition. But since he had a previous life he could remember, he wasn't craving any of those. So he was more chill and relaxed about it. They couldn't talk about future living arrangements until Sirius talks with his Black account manager in Gringotts. So they settled with catching up for now and talking about James and Lily. A few days later, St. Mungo's healers determined that the remaining treatment for Sirius rehabilitation can be done at home and allowed him to check out. Sirius then proceeded to talk to the Black's account manager and learned he was not officially kicked out of House Black. Despite his mother claiming to kick him out, she was not the actual head of house, so it was not legally or magically recognized. Sirius then formally took his lordship as Lord Black. There were a lot of things he needed to decide as Lord Black, but for now, he first asked about the state of the Black's ancestral home in Grimmauld Place. He visited the place, but realized how unlivable it currently was, so he ordered the elf creature to clean the place up while he temporarily checked into a hotel in Muggle London. Unlike most pure-blood wizards, he was familiar with Muggles because of Lily, so he had no trouble staying at a hotel. He also started to regularly visit Harry and kept him updated about their future housing situation. So Harry already knew they would soon stay at Grimmauld Place. Andrew already told Sirius of the restraining order against Dumbledore, so he suggested to Sirius that he make sure the wards are up to date and working. He also reminded Sirius that Harry was the boy who lived, so he had to take his safety into account more so than normal. Since Sirius and Remus were no longer part of the Order, because of this whole ordeal, the house would no longer be the headquarters of said order. But Harry made sure to tell his godfather that he didn't want Dumbledore or his people near him even in the future. This gave Sirius the idea to have the Fidelius charm cast with him as secret keeper. He paid the goblins to cast the charm and other wards to ensure their safety. At the moment, only he, Remus, and Harry were keyed in, but he would later add an Andromeda and her family, as he wanted to accept her back into the House of Black. Oh, after a few weeks' time, 12, Grimmauld Place was now livable and relatively clean. Harry said his goodbyes and thanks to the bones, and finally moved in with Sirius and Remus. He can now start focusing on learning and his abilities and experiments. Time skip. 1 year after moving in with Sirius and Remus, Harry has properly settled in. The house was now properly cleaned. Most of the dark artifacts were moved into a secure room to be looked at by a curse breaker eventually. The only exception was the locket creature was holding on to. Without Sirius and Remus knowing, Harry had talked to Creature about it and told the house elf that he would help him destroy it eventually, but told him that it was dangerous to keep around closely, so he had the house elf hide it securely and made sure it was not in direct contact with any one of them, including the elf himself. Creature had locked it in a hidden cabinet at the farthest room and placed several wards to ensure no one would be able to get it. Since the locket was no longer in direct and constant contact with the house elf, he started recovering his sanity and started slowly being nice to them. The house elf eventually relented and accepted to move while Burga Black's annoying painting to a room not being used. Over the months, Harry had still attended some of the private classes with Susan Bones, so he was now somewhat properly knowledgeable of wizarding customs and social norms, at least the more common and important ones. Harry also regularly visited Luna, so Sirius occasionally teased him about it, but Harry didn't really mind that much. He was also introduced to Andromeda and her family as she was accepted back into the House of Black. Meeting Nymphadora was interesting since Harry used his focus to record her using her metamorphagus abilities. After months of study, Harry realized he could somewhat emulate this ability by manually moving magicules the same way Tonks did her thing. At this point in time, with the horcrux gone, his scars slowly healed and no longer visible. This also somehow affected his eyesight, which started to improve and, with the help of certain potions, eventually got fixed. "Watch her, Harry." "Hey, Dora." Harry was allowed to call her that since he was family. Most people Nymphadora would prefer to be called Tonks. "Did you get it yet?" Dora asked. Harry had been open with her regarding his attempts at copying the hair changes. Check this out. Harry then changes his hairstyle to a long one similar to his Triwizard Tournament look. Then he proceeded to shorten it to a mohawk before starting to change the color. Brilliant. With this at least, you can get around without getting mobbed, yeah? Probably. I mean, if I met people I actually know, they might recognize me. But for the general public, I can probably pass off as a different person. Harry could only change his hair for now. One of Harry's accidental magic events was his hair growing back overnight after being cut by the Dursleys. This gave Harry the confidence that he can somewhat alter his hair. This meant he could now change his hairstyle and color, including length. He no longer needed to worry about the Potter trademark bird's nest hair. Just then a voice was heard from the stairs. 2 sets of footsteps were heard coming down. "Blima pup, are you a metamorphagus as well?" Sirius asked. Sirius and Remus thought Harry was a partial metamorphagus since he could change his hair, and Harry just laughed at it and didn't correct them. Since Harry used to be an Asian in his last life, he had a preference of Japanese and Korean hairstyles. Hence most days, he looked somewhat like an anime character with layered hairstyle. It also worked on his favor since he needed to be in a disguise if he wanted to go out. He then changed the style and color to that of young Cloud Strife minus the ponytail from that flashback scene in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think I'll go out like this when I want to see Luna or walk around Diagon Alley or something. Sure, it still attracts attention, but most people probably wouldn't immediately think Boy Who Lived. A little strange, but I like it. Sirius chuckled. It helps that most would look for a black messy hair, then they generally look for Harry. Remus added, "I'll go visit Luna for a bit." Harry then went to the fireplace and flew traveled to the Lovegoods. Harry regularly visited Luna at their house to hang out. Since Zeno and Pandora were usually busy during weekdays, Harry kept Luna company. "Hello, Luna," Harry greeted as he went through the fireplace at the Lovegood house. "Hello, Harry. What happened with your hair?" She replied with a smile. "I learned how to change my hair from Dora. I can't change my face, but the hair seems to be possible. It's nice. I really like it." "Really? Or are you just saying that because you're also blonde?" Harry smirked. "Of course not." "Well, maybe a little bit." She giggled. "But it does cover a bit of your facial features, so it's a good disguise." "Yup. So maybe we can walk around Diagon Alley sometime without getting too much attention." They both then proceeded to sit down and start drawing. This was a hobby they both enjoy sometimes. Luna loves painting or sketching magical creatures, while Harry would sketch different things. Today, he was making a few clothing designs. If witches and wizards wore robes and ancient-looking clothing, he wanted to make his own fashion based on games or movies. He started drawing a few sketches of clothing based on Star Wars Jedi outfits, Sith, and other civilian robes and tunics. One particular sketch he was doing was from the old game he remembered, Star Wars Force Unleashed. This one was one of Starkiller's concept art costumes. He wanted to try making an actual lightsaber someday, but that was still far in the future when he had the resources. For now, he can only settle for the outfits. For the past few months, he'd been regularly checking out Muggle cinemas or video rental stores, and so far, he has yet to see a single Star Wars reference, even mentioning it randomly, and people don't seem to know what it is. He concluded that a lot of the entertainment he had on his previous life did not exist here or have not yet been made. That's a very unique-looking design. "Are you going to make those clothes?" Luna asked after looking at his sketches. "Most likely. I want to make my own clothing style since I'm not particularly fond of what most wizards wear. I won't mind it if I'm the only one who thinks these look nice. I'll still wear them. Can you make some for me too?" Luna was rather interested in them. They were very unusual and different, yet somehow appealing to her. She never really cared if they were seen as wearing eccentric clothing anyway, a trait the Lovegoods seem to share. "Sure, I can make a few sketches, then you can pick which ones you like, and we can get them made to try out." A few days later, Harry came back with a few sets of clothing, and they both spent the day trying out different ones. Most made them look like they would fit in Coruscant or Naboo. Harry had them made from Muggle tailors custom-made, but he copied most general clothing charms onto them, like for cleanliness or resizing. Luna truly enjoyed the new clothing since they were very unique. "Oh, Merlin, what are you two wearing? Those look interesting," Pandora exclaimed after seeing the clothes. "Just some designs I was trying out. They're not common or even similar to most robes witches and wizards wear, but I like it this way. These are just some of the first few ones I had tailor-made," Harry replied. He then handed his sketchbook to Pandora so she can browse more of his sketches. There she found several female clothing designs that even she would consider wearing. For the Lovegoods, clothing being odd or eccentric was never a problem. They preferred their own thing and were perfectly fine with it. Some designs were simplistic like Princess Leia from A New Hope, and some were more complex like the designs for Queen Amidala. They were enjoying mixing and matching the accessories as well when Xenophilius silently came in and joined in on looking through the designs. In the end, even both parents were requesting Harry for some of the designs and giving him their measurements. Hours later, after getting home, when Harry told Sirius about what happened, even he got curious and also got enticed, though he leaned towards Sith-themed clothing. "Pup, why don't you hire a few tailors and seamstresses? These designs look amazing. Who knows, maybe you'll keep on designing your own clothing line that we can eventually launch it as a business. If not, maybe at least have your own team for your own personal apparel." "That's actually a good idea, Padfoot. I mean, I was originally just making stuff I want to wear, but I don't really see myself stopping anytime soon with these. Also, I'm still growing up, so I would need to have new ones made after a while anyway." Harry feeling optimistic about this idea. "And considering your fame, I'm pretty sure you could start your own trends." Sirius laughed. "I used to enjoy occasional cosplay in my previous life. I guess some things you still can't help but miss." He thought to himself. And so, Sirius helped Harry hire some Muggle-born that were having a hard time staying in the British wizarding world. Oh, Harry had also started on learning basic spells with wandless magic. He can so far do simple stuff like Lumos, Scourgify, and mostly household magic that housewives tend to learn. Harry was thinking about practical use of spells than combat ability. After all, at worst-case scenario, he can use TK to defend himself or attack enemies. That combined with Magic Null, he can survive at least. So he focused on the convenience of magic. He also started learning Transfiguration after bugging Sirius to show him how a few times while recording them with his focus. He had Sirius do it a couple of times with different objects and sizes, so he had comparison. Wandless Transfiguration was still too complex for him, so he resigned himself to doing it with the Elder Wand in secret. He also learned more about his Magic Null ability. He could put the magic nullification based on target. He can target a person, creature, or, if needed, a location by targeting the floor. And it worked like some kind of bubble barrier. For inanimate objects like the floor or object, it leaves a bubble around the target. At first he thought it was only a bubble and everything in it will have nullified magic. But over time he learned that he can also force the bubble to act as a literal barrier or thin layer where the inside still has magic and nothing can go in or out. The null bubble acts like the bubble head charm where there's still air inside. In this case, his magic null can prevent any magic going in or out of said bubble. Eventually, he learned how to alter the shape of the barrier to copy the shape of the target. Like if, say the target is a cup, he can alter the barrier to copy the cup's shape, and if he chooses, he can have the magic null be a thin layer around the cup, but the inside of the cup still has magic or complete no magic inside. He got this idea when he wanted to try and make a shield out of the magic null. If he simply covered himself with a normal barrier, it would mean he would be removing his access to magic. If he was a magical creature, he would probably die. So he wanted a way to make an outer layer of nullification which kept magic inside and magic from entering from the outside. As a result, his magic null became more effective and flexible. It was like a more flexible and malleable version of the thief's downfall from Gringotts. If anyone cast spells towards him, as long as his barrier is up, the spells would theoretically dissipate and he would not be harmed. But he needs to test this out first before being sure. He decided to call this application of the magic null as Null Shield. Null Shield would have the protection he needed when in combat, while the normal magic null would eliminate any and all magic inside the bubble. He could now, in theory, keep a millimeter-thin barrier on top of his skin to prevent any harmful magic, yet keep his internal body functioning with magic, and only have his hand and mouth as an outlet for his magic. Theoretically, he is shielded from any and all magic from touching him, yet the mouth is open for potions, and his inside palm is unprotected, so he can perform his own magic outwards. The best comparison would be having a personal force field, or kind of like Green Lantern's glow. Once Harry gets used to this ability, he assumes he can pretend to remove someone's magic like Aang does from Avatar, The Last Airbender. That's what gave him the idea of removing the threat of a magical being by removing their powers. In this case, he would permanently put a barrier around said witch or wizard that would prevent them from casting magic. But he made sure to experiment on which null he would use on them. Creatures would probably be given Null Shield, while wizards would be depending on threat level. Though for Voldy, he decided maybe applying the normal magic null would be enough, so nothing goes in or out, and everything inside loses magic completely. This meant that a homunculus body like Voldy after the Triwizard Cup would break down due to lack of magic. The downside of this is that the target with Null Shield would be totally immune to any kind of magic, but that would be fine considering they would have to start living as a muggle. It would be the best punishment he could give pure-blood bigots. Harry also started using his TK more and more in secret as well, so he would get stronger with it. He also regularly practiced several objects floating around him in controlled directions to train for accuracy and finesse as well. His current TK level was similar to when the main characters of the movie Chronicle learned to use TK to form a protective, invisible shield around them. Like when the characters played around with forks and tried stabbing each other, yet unable to make actual damage. The upside of this is a physical protective TK shield that can probably stop bullets. Downside is that he needs to will it to protect him. In other words, the TK shield isn't a passive ability, but an active one. And finally, his jump points are increasing as he regularly takes videos of locations he wants to turn into jump points. Fashion trends. For the past few weeks, people have started noticing the new outfits being worn by the Lovegoods, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and two blonde children. No one recognized Harry with his cloud hairstyle. Very occasionally, the young Susan Bones as well can be seen with the unusual clothing. At first, people thought it was some new eccentric look of the Lovegoods. But after a while, people started to warm up to it and started to become a bit interested. While they aren't interested enough to wear clothes like them yet, for a society that's been stuck for centuries, this was something fresh and new which sparks interest. The fact that a lot of Star Wars fashion generally had clothes that were somewhat inspired by robes made it easier to accept to people. Eventually word got around, and before they knew it, for some reason it even reached which weekly publications. Most of the photos were from afar, but they were clear enough that the clothes were properly seen. A lot of students tried asking around Diagon Alley, but so far no one has been able to determine where these came from. Some tried getting copies made, but most never looked authentic. Like getting a fake product. It looks similar, but people can somehow still tell that something is off. Sirius and Remus thought it might be a good time to start the side business, so they opened a small shop in Diagon Alley with some of the clothes on mannequins displayed prominently on the windows. Most of the clothing sold were mostly Star Wars-themed clothing. Those cloth based at least from different planets. Harry saved the Jedi and Sith to be exclusive for his friends and family for now, if they liked it. To capitalize on Harry's name, they put a huge poster of him with his original hair, wearing some of the outfits as an advertisement. They even had the Potter crest displayed behind the main counter. This got people really interested. After barely a month, they had become so popular that teens from all over Wizarding Britain are lining up to buy from their shop. Soon, their new fashion trend became somewhat of a new norm in Diagon Alley or communities like Hogsmeade. The fact that it was featured in Witch Weekly boosted the trend, so it even reached other schools like Buxbaden's. With the French culture, it was even more noticed over there. Shortly after, visitors from France could be seen arriving in Diagon Alley to buy some of the clothes. While all this was happening, Harry also had a few custom designs made that weren't for sale, but for his personal wardrobe. He had the designs he wanted made, then he added some charms. Some of the designs he wanted was from movies like Tron Legacy. But he needed the tech and materials first, so he thought of making cauldrons from Horizon World pretty soon. Harry didn't really think there was anything wrong with Muggle fashion, but fantasy clothing had its own special place in his heart as an expression of his artistic side. Just like how some artists or painters dressed differently in his previous world, it was just one among many forms of expressing one's self. To wear fantasy clothing felt like casual, wear cosplay to him. So, to be able to achieve it here was a personal victory for himself. In his previous modern world, wearing unusual clothing was fine and all, but the stares and attention wasn't for everyone. Most who liked to cosplay needed excuses like comic or anime conventions to wear cosplay, be it complex costumes or simple unique clothing. But here in the wizarding world, he thought since these witches and wizards wore weird, outdated clothing anyway, he'll use that as his personal excuse to wear whatever he wanted. The trend being popular was just a bonus. Oh, Marauders map. One Sunday morning, Harry was gearing up and prepared his cloak of invisibility. He had already made an excuse of going to Luna's to play. He told Luna his plans to vouch for him, just in case. Harry used his jump ability to teleport into Hogwarts while wearing the cloak. For the past year, he had amassed jump points near Hogsmeade and scouted for some hidden spots near Hogwarts. He arrived in a hidden spot near the Quidditch pitch and walked around still hidden. He wanted to find Mr. Filch and hopefully find his office. He had no choice but to walk around and wander aimlessly since he was not familiar with the castle yet. Harry had done this for an hour each day before actually going to Luna to hang out. Now it was just another day, but his luck finally pulled through. He found the man and his cat returning from Hagrid's hut. He followed the man from afar until he reached his office. After remembering how to get there, Harry jumped back to the rookery. After a few hours, Harry wore the cloak again and did a quick jump to Filch's office to check if he was there. Luckily, he wasn't. Harry started looking for the cupboards and drawers to look for confiscated and highly dangerous. After a short while, he found it and started rummaging until he finally found an old parchment. He pointed his wand and spoke. "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." Shortly after the greeting, the map then appeared as he had expected. He didn't bother saying the hide password and simply put it in his pocket, then jumped back home. In his room, he spent a lot of his free time analyzing the magicules in an attempt to replicate it. At this point in time, he was still too young and lacked quite a lot of knowledge to be able to understand all of it, but at the least, he could make a copy onto another parchment by manipulating the magicules to be exactly the same as the other one. He didn't forget to apply intent to his magic to ensure it followed the same rules as the original map. Harry had spent an entire month's worth of free time at night to make his own map. With how complex the map was and all its enchantments, Harry could only make a 1:1 copy. After doing all he could to ensure the copy functions like the original one, he then left the original in his room while he did a quick jump back to Filch's office to leave the copy back for the twins to discover eventually. Now that he had a list of all Muggle-born, he can, when he deems it necessary, trace down where they all are. For children, the address that was written would probably be accurate for them to receive their Hogwarts acceptance letter. But for those who have graduated, it will require investigation if they stayed in England or left as most generally do, due to the prejudice and pure-blood bigotry. Harry never really thought of staying in Hogwarts, much less Britain. The British wizarding world was already rotten and infested with bigotry, prejudice. Even worse was that those in power have little to no tolerance of Muggle-born or even other creatures. Harry believes that if every Muggle-born left, the British wizarding world would, in a mere few generations, die out on its own even without dork lords running about. As most Muggles with proper science education would know, inbreeding brings out all sorts of mutations. And with these idiots who relish in pure-blood ideology, they most likely no longer have much time left. For the past few generations, pure-blood birth rate had started to decline with an unusual exception of the Weasleys. Each generation, the options for marriage partners become lower and lower that Harry predicts will eventually lead the pure-bloods back to picking the Weasleys. In a few more generations, and they will probably struggle to even produce witch or wizard heirs. Witches and wizards of Britain don't yet realize that with their inbreeding, more and more squibs are popping up all over the place. They do not realize that their squibs are results of mutations in their blood that are caused by not having new genes introduced to their lineage. A good example was with Nymphadora Tonks. With the introduction of new blood, the metamorphosis ability thought to be lost resurfaced. Harry didn't intend to save these stubborn people set in their ways. They were afraid of change and had been left behind by Muggles. Harry believed that since the current government was beyond saving, he might as well make a new one. There's a few ways this could be achieved. Option 1. Let Voldy take over, destroy each other until the international community decides to step in. He thinks that other countries would likely step in if the Statue of Secrecy is in danger of being broken by the Death Eater attacks. If Voldy becomes a big enough threat, they will realize they need to protect the Statute of Secrecy, so they will work together, but not until the final hour. Option 2. Make a new country/community and invite every single Muggle-born to join him. Let the pure bloods die out on their own. It was probably easy to convince them considering how much they all endure in the British wizarding world. The best position they could get in the ministry was a secretary, just because of their blood. If they're given an opportunity, they might take it then and there. Option 3. He can probably use his magic null to make every single bigot into a Muggle. That third option would probably be one hell of a prank on the purebloods. That would be karma at its finest. But if he goes down that road, he still needs to deal with a government system that was still based on bloodline. After considering those current options, Harry was thinking it might be a mixture of all three, but he's not entirely convinced yet. If the British wizarding world is to survive, they need to get past the pure blood crap as a bare minimum. They also need an overhaul to a voted position like the rest of the damn planet if they don't want any more dork lords popping up. They will never even realize that they can never properly thrive if they keep basing the governance of their society on what their last name was instead of who has the best ability. Option 4. Return governance to the Muggles, particularly the royal family. That last one might even be for the best, but Harry doubts the witches and wizards could ever accept that. For now, Harry decided to prepare for the possibility of any of those options, but consider option 2 more than the others for now. He also decided that maybe in the next few years he can start to act on option 3 by starting with all the bloody Death Eaters locked up in Azkaban. Problem is, he doesn't know how to get there yet. Harry thought that maybe when he's around 10 years old, he can probably ask Sirius how to get to Azkaban to pull a prank on convicted Death Eaters. After some serious pondering, Harry went back to his regular routine while spending free time analyzing the map and the Book of Admittance while keeping up with his learning and training his TK. It was time to start planning on how to make Horizon Zero Dawn cauldrons. After a long while analyzing the soul fragment they got from Harry, the Unspeakables were finally able to get a breakthrough and use it to trace other soul fragments. It took them this long to find a way to trace the others. It was time for them to start properly hunting the other horcrux. The ritual they created to divine the other horcrux locations was not very accurate, but they gave out the general locations. And because of how complex the ritual was and the magic requirements, they could only try and divine one horcrux, then they would need to prepare to charge up an entire year's worth of magic rituals again before trying for another one. After all, the ritual scried through the entirety of Britain. When Sirius mentioned this to Harry, since he was technically connected to all this, Harry decided it was time to tell Sirius about Regulus. It would be better to give a horcrux to them, so they would skip a year's worth on this one. Padfoot, I think you need to talk to Creature. Sure, what about Pup? Sirius asked. I think you should hear from him Regulus' last order. Sirius was sad hearing Regulus' name, but decided to trust Harry. Creature, Master Call, yes. As Lord of House Black, I command you to tell me about your last order from my brother Regulus. Creature then seemed sad and rather hurt. Master Regulus ordered Creature to take the locket and destroy it. But Creature cannot destroy the locket. Creature has failed Master Regulus. What locket? Tell me everything. Sirius was alarmed, but listened. After a few minutes, Sirius was in tears. Oh, Reggie, why didn't you come to me? Sirius was really sad, but at the same time, he was thankful in the knowledge that his brother tried to do what was right in his last moments. He then ordered Creature to give him the locket and brought it to Amelia. Sirius then relayed the story to Amelia, and they then had Harry make a short visit to the Ministry's Department of Mysteries and have him throw the locket through the veil. They did not know how much the prophecy would actually affect the destruction of horcruxes, but just to make sure, they had Harry do the deed itself. Creature was insistent on watching, so they brought him with them. Before Harry threw the locket, he whispered in Parseltongue, "Open." Harry said it quietly and just enough so the locket would hear it, and no one else. Then he threw it to the veil as it opened. Shortly after throwing the locket, though, they saw a shade that came out of the locket and screamed the moment it touched the veil. They all knew they had succeeded and one horcrux was actually destroyed. When the Unspeakables did the ritual to trace the next one, the location they got was Diagon Alley. So they decided to plan on making several raids over the course of the year. Harry planned to give them a hint later on in a form of side comment about the possibility of it being in Gringotts' vaults, but he decided he'll do that next year to give it a bit of time to avoid suspicion. Meanwhile, Creature was so overwhelmed and relieved that his former master's last order was completed. Sirius and Harry went home and gave Creature some time to come into terms and didn't bother him for the rest of the day. Oh, Potter Manor and House Elves. Harry decided to visit the Potter Manor one afternoon. He knew of its existence after the inheritance ritual, but put it off for a while. I, Harry James Potter, heir of the ancient and noble house of Potter, call forth the head house elf of Potter Manor. He exclaimed, "Pop, young Master Harry?" The house elf asked. Master Harry has returned. Hello, are you the head house elf? Can I ask your name? Yes, Master Harry. Sebzi is head house elf. Nice to meet you, Sebzi. Can you tell me how many house elves do I have? Of course, sir. House Potter has 20 remaining. House Potter used to have more, but they be died already. The elf said sadly. House elves need to be bonding to Wizard Master. Since previous masters died, we'd be barely surviving on Potter Manor house magic. Harry then realized that if he did not claim the manor and the elves, they would have all died. So if he followed Dumbledore's original plan, all the Potter house elves would have died out since he was never told of his inheritance and properties. After all, Dumbledore never really intended Harry to survive. So he never bothered arranging for education beyond basics to fight Voldemort. Harry then decided to formally claim the manor and all the house elves. He then asked the head house elf how to make changes on the wards. He added his friends and family to the accepted entry book and added Dumbledore and the rest of the order to the banned entry list. Sebzi, I want you, and however many elves you need to sneak into Hogwarts to take back all the belongings of House Potter that may be in Hogwarts, if any. It was a long shot since Harry wasn't sure, but after a few moments, the elves indeed came back with several items from Hogwarts, specifically the headmaster's private quarters. Some of them included rare and long-lost books on several different disciplines and family magic. The most noticeable was apparently the pensive. As it turns out, the headmaster somehow got hold of several objects from the Potters. Since they were not from the vault, Harry assumed Dumbledore somehow obtained these from scamming the previous Potters. After securing all of them, Harry had them locked in one of the vaults in Potter Manor. For the heck of it, he ordered the elves to make sure the manor and all other properties of the House Potter are properly maintained. He decided to read some of the books later on, so he only took the books on family magics. He decided he would properly look into all the other properties later with Sirius. He remembered the rest only vaguely, but he knew he would need to visit Gringotts again later to be sure and properly assess which ones, if any, are available as a location for the cauldron. Oh, hey Sirius, can we go to Gringotts today? Harry asked. Sure, pup. Thinking of anything interesting, are you? Sirius replied with a mysterious glint in his eye. I know that look after all. James had that look when he was thinking of plans for a prank. I'm not thinking of any pranks at the moment. Harry responded with a chuckle. I'm thinking of checking the Potter assets and see if we own a vast area of land for my future plans, or if not, maybe buy it. I thought I heard from James long ago that the Potters did have quite a few, so there shouldn't be any problems there. Can you tell me what your plans are? Not too much yet, but it's going to be my first secret base of sorts. Sirius chuckled as he thought it would be like their old shrieking shack. All right, but why do you say vast area of land if it's just going to be a secret base? For future expansion, of course. It's going to be a long-term project of mine. I also want to commission goblins to put all sorts of wards and protections to the area so we can use it as an emergency safe house if need be. Harry didn't want to tell him everything yet, but he decided to start on making cauldrons from Horizon's world. Oh, after an hour talking with goblins, Harry and Sirius got port keys and visited one of the land properties, which was an unplottable island between the UK and Denmark in the middle of the North Sea. It was an island as big as Isle of Man, so it was fairly big. He didn't really know what it was for and why Potters owned this island, but it suited his needs either way. Sirius thought it was a bit too far and large for a secret base, but Harry convinced him to go along with it. Naturally, Harry had recorded a relatively hidden area with his focus and saved it as a jump point. Meanwhile, since the whole island was unplottable, they didn't need to worry about wards for now. Sirius bought a few wizard tents for now and set them up in the middle of the island. He figured if Harry wanted to build structures later on, the tent would serve as the initial base. Since Harry had the portable port key to the island, Sirius didn't think too much on it and simply let Harry do his thing. Maybe the kid wanted a big area to fly around with on a broom. Sirius thought to himself, oh, for the next few months, Harry strived to focus on transfiguration. He started making microchips and motherboards, then continued to transfigure rocks to all sorts of parts using blueprints he could look at with his focus. Slowly but surely, Harry eventually made all the parts for a small machine printer, kind of like a 3D printer, but can use a wide variety of materials from Horizon's world, powered by very efficient solar panels. He continued making machine printers, and while he was transfiguring more parts, the machine printers were also making more and more parts. As if he was building a computer, he would start transfiguring rocks to microchips, resistors, and all sorts of materials, then slowly assemble it into a motherboard. then make more parts until he created a cooling fan, RAM, video card, etc., until the whole desktop tower was completed. He would create all sorts of parts needed to make his machine printers, and those printers would print more parts to make more printers, and so on. Harry always did this in secret, so no one knew what he was doing. Unfortunately, this also made his project several times longer to complete. Time skip 1 year. Another year passed. His fantasy-inspired clothing store eventually got branches in different wizarding countries. They were all being handled by people Sirius hired, so Harry didn't really need to do anything apart from occasionally designing more clothing. After using his free time to secretly transfigure all sorts of parts, Harry was able to eventually build an entire cauldron. In the world of Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, cauldrons were huge underground facilities focused on creating machines and controlling them. It can create several hundred machines that have different purposes. The raw materials were mined from underground. They also had technology to alter materials and change them into what is needed. It's practically bordering on alchemy with how they change materials and metals. By altering the number of electrons and protons, the machines could change one element from the periodic table to another. Precious metals would be hard to convert due to the high energy consumption, so he only used this technology for creating needed elements and not for profit. His initial machine printers relied on advanced solar panels, but as the cauldron started to become more complete, he eventually converted to more efficient solar energy farms combined with wind energy in a form of fusion. The unplottable island now had a lot of all sorts of advanced solar panel farms and wind turbines in one designated area. The entrance of the cauldron looked like a triangle metallic doorway, similar to how it was in the game. The facility itself was underground, so only the entrance was visible. It was also equipped with a DNA scan for security. Another few months later, after the cauldron was completed, he had 1,000 machines. He ordered some of the Sentinel-looking machines from the Matrix to make his first signal tower. It was meant to give the Focus access to the internet when he mass-produced those. So he can now access the internet, which was beginning to get populated, though still relatively new, from anywhere in the island. The signal tower was also strong enough to cover the surrounding countries like France, Norway, Germany, and all of UK. He'll probably need to build another one in Serbia and Russia eventually to cover the rest of Europe. Oh, Focus and Wisdom. Harry also made 100 focuses for now. Since the Focus can act as an all-purpose device, he didn't particularly see the need to produce laptops and computers, but he did so anyway in case he needed muggles under him to use them. But the Focus can act as a personal computer anyway, with a vast database from Horizon, camera, augmented reality device, and other functions. For the first-generation Focus that he mass-produced, Harry made it to have very limited access, so the Horizon knowledge database would not be available. He didn't want that to spread anyway. So the mass-produced Focus was only the bare Focus with limited functionality and no Horizon database, but contained public books for now. He wanted to create a magical database from the scans of books he's gotten. His current public database included books available to the magical public as well as Muggle. Then, depending on who, some Focus he would allow to have access to the scan books from the Black Library or the Bones Library. Eventually, it will include the Hogwarts Library as well when he gets access to scan them. Harry also ordered the printing of the transparent tablets he intends to use as a replacement for the Daily Prophet. Visually, they would look like iPads, but they look like plastic or glass and would have limited access as well. After all, the people of this time were not ready for advanced tech. Even more so for witches and wizards of UK, who were practically cavemen compared to the rest of the Muggle world. The tablets could only open one browser window with 2 tabs. One main tab for the new Quibbler he had planned to replace news and articles, another tab for advertisements. Harry had the tablets he now dubbed Wisdom. He produced about a few thousand for now. Now the main problem of magic interference comes into play. Harry experimented throughout the year and eventually figured out that he can simply cast magic null on the object and have it copy the shape, so it isn't affected by any magic at all. Surprisingly simple solution, which he then applied to all of his machines and products. He figured it would probably be funny if the wizards figured out his machines could technically be used as shields against offensive spells, but would be vulnerable to physical attacks. Since his technology came from Horizon's world, there's a very low chance of anyone being able to reverse engineer his technology for at least several decades. It might as well be alien tech to them. But just to be sure that his products are protected, he programmed a small self-destruct trigger in case any of them are physically opened. They wouldn't explode or anything, but the circuitry would burn and fizzle everything inside the moment they are opened, so people won't be able to figure out all the parts. The microchips themselves are practically disintegrated once they are opened. Once the protections are in place, and the first few thousands are ready for selling, he brought them back home to Grimmauld Place. He took 3 sample Wiztomes and 3 Focus Mint for the Lovegoods. He then set aside 2 more for Sirius and Remus. Then asked Sirius to invite the Lovegoods over for dinner, so he can introduce the products to everyone. Oh, showing the Focus and Wiztome to the family. "So what's the occasion, Harry?" Pandora asked. They all knew Harry wanted to talk to them, so they were all curious. "I created a few products that I want to introduce to you all." Harry then brought out Wiztomes for Sirius, Remus, Luna, Pandora, and Xenophilus. "Huh, is this some kind of glass?" Sirius asked. They all inspected them, but did not understand what they were for just yet. "Well, it looks like glass, but it doesn't feel as fragile or heavy, though. I call this a Wiztome. Why don't you all press the small button on the top right corner edge, so we can start?" As they did, the Wiztomes activated and opened the browser. It looked like a hologram projected on glass since they were transparent. The first thing they saw was the front page of the scanned copy of the latest Quibbler edition. Harry taught them to scroll down using the touchscreen to browse to other pages by sliding their fingers upwards. This is brilliant. With a single artifact, the whole Quibbler magazine can be viewed. Though I have to ask, isn't it a waste to throw these away for every edition? Zeno asked. I don't think Harry intended them to be a consumable daddy. They seem a little too sophisticated for that, said Luna. That's right. Once a new edition comes out, it can directly be shown on the Wiztomes. You can also view older editions. Harry then used his focus to have an older edition appear on all the Wiztomes. He then showed them how to navigate to older editions or newer ones. So, this is a one-time purchase? So how do we earn from a Quibbler then? Pandora asked. We can sell the initial device for a relatively low price. Then we can ask for paid subscriptions per month, every 6 months or yearly. Once the subscription ends, they can ask for a renewal or end the service, and the device no longer updates new ones. This is incredible. Even Muggles don't have things like these. Remus exclaimed. While it seems like an unnecessary change, it gives a bit of a premium or exclusivity feel. And it's not like we take out the profit or Quibbler in Muggle areas anyway. What is this other thing for Harry? Luna asked, showing the other tab. That's for advertisements. If shops want to advertise their products, old or new, they can pay for a slot there where we can have their products featured in that advertisement area. It would also be good for shops who offer mail via owl orders. They can showcase their products there with details how to order. Harry then explained the concept of advertisements and ad fees. Of course, our products would be at the top advertisements when we do have products to sell. Harry then showed them that the advertisement page can also scroll down. So this could be another avenue for earning galleons then. Very clever, Harry, said Zeno. He then showed his next product, the Focus. I call this a Focus. This thing, like the one I wear near my temple and ear, has several functions I'd like to talk about. Harry then gave them each one, and they all placed them in their temples to their right ear. They were all surprised. Then the AR technology started showing them labels of various things if they concentrate on an object. Harry taught them how to use them and explained how to turn them active or not to hide or show the labels. This would help witches and wizards to understand Muggle items better. Like if they wanted to know what a device was, they just turn on the Focus and check the labels that appear, which will generally have a short description of the item based on the object database. If they used it to scan a computer, a label would appear telling them what it was and what it is used for in the Muggle world. After that, he taught them how to access the magic database. He showed them how to navigate the table of contents, which showed the title of books then proceeded to tap on the book name, and it redirects them to the said scan of book. The book would then appear as if a hologram version of the book, which they can interact with even if they cannot feel the book itself. Harry also showed them the search function, which surprised them. Pandora was especially excited about it. This search function is extremely helpful for research. This could make my spell crafting much more smoother and easier. Pandora exclaimed, almost jumping up and down on her seat. This would make cross-referencing topics or spells much more convenient. Oh, and the Wiz Tome also has a search function for certain keywords or topics. Harry quickly said, well now, it could also be useful for reviewing older editions if we want to backtrack older topics. This is indeed a very useful thing to have. Zeno is already thinking of its impact as the editor of the Quibbler. Hold on, does this mean you copied all of the books onto this device? Sirius asked. Blimey, that's mental. How many books are in the public area of the Black Library alone? That's easy. These things can also record photos or videos. So I used that scan ability to record books. Harry then showed them how to use the camera and record functions. This is quite fun. Maybe we can use this to capture a photo of the crumple-horned snorkack without disturbing them in their natural habitat. Luna exclaimed, that's a very good idea, my little moon. Indeed, this is a very useful contraption. Zeno replied. Harry then taught Zeno how to scan and upload a Quibbler edition and how to publish it to appear on the Wiz Tomes. He brought out a separate printer which could accept the data from Focus so it can print out images, though its weakness was not being able to print moving pictures. But the Focus can add short video clips on its scanned Quibbler editions so it can be published directly. So they can either upload a manually made edition of Quibbler and make changes or replacements necessary through the Focus. Simply, they can scan a normal Quibbler magazine and replace or add images or video clips using the Focus or keep it as if they wished. Even better is that this recording seems to be in full color. While we cannot print physical moving pictures, the colored videos that can be published directly to Wiz Tomes look amazing. Zeno was in awe. Up to this point, Wizarding World's moving pictures were still black and white. So seeing the digital version of the Quibbler in the Wiz Tome with full color looked amazing. And I thought our Marauders map was the pinnacle of our brilliance. Here comes Prongslit with Wiz Tomes and focuses that make our map look like a regular piece of parchment, ha ha ha. Remus was in very good spirits, since these things showed how brilliant Harry was. Speaking of that, I wanted to tell me how you made that map, so maybe I can put a function like that in my Focus. Harry quickly added, while he already made a copy, the actual enchantments on it were still something he didn't understand for now. After Remus and Sirius agreed to teach him how to make the map, Harry then proceeded to teach them how to make calls to each other. So you're saying you can use these to talk to anyone who has these from anywhere? Sirius asked. Well, relatively anywhere. So far, my Focus can support calls from anywhere in the UK, France, Germany, Denmark, half of Norway, and a third of Sweden. I can probably extend those ranges eventually. Harry said proudly. How in Merlin's balls did you do all this? This seems extremely advanced. Sirius asked. These inventions are so revolutionary that it was so hard to comprehend a young kid was able to make all these. We all have secrets. Harry laughed. You'll just have to trust me. He shrugged. So back to the calls. With communication this easy, we can properly notify each other in cases of danger or emergencies. Even simply getting in touch. This is brilliant, Harry. Pandora's eyes shining in awe of the boy. Glad you like them. Though the Focus won't be for sale for now and is only available for people I can count on as family and friends. But we could talk about how to price and sell the Wiz Tomes. Before that, though, think you can make a version with just the call function alone, pup? I'm thinking if you can give Amelia a few for her strictly trustworthy Aurors, this could help out a lot. Sure, I guess. But I want this strictly confidential. I don't want these spreading for now. I wouldn't want Voldy's Death Munchers having access to direct and speedy communications after all. We could do that. Maybe even get an oath or something. I'll talk it out with Amelia. Oh, and I don't want Order members having access to this as well. Non-negotiable on that one, I'm afraid. Well, how'd you know about that? And why not? Sirius was surprised, and so was Remus. Don't want to talk about it. But either way, All I can say is I don't want them having this at all. I guess it makes sense considering the order is under Dumbledore. Remus interjects. With recent revelations dash. The remaining few hours were discussions of how to launch the Wisdom and replace parchment printing for the Quibbler, jumper ability, and face sight. Hey Luna, want to go to a Muggle park? Harry asked Luna one day. Sure, Harry. I've always wanted to visit Muggle park areas. Luna replied. But how are we going there? Are we getting your uncles to take us there? Not really. I have a way to get us there, but I want your word you won't tell anyone. It's kind of a secret ability of mine. Well, I have a few, but this is just one of them, Harry said with a mysterious smile. That's not a problem, Harry. I also have a secret ability, though I don't really tell anyone. Last time I tried, a mean red-headed boy called me loony. What? Why'd he do that? That's just mean. Don't worry, Luna. I'm your friend. I never call you mean names like that. And you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, by the way. Thanks, Harry. I know I can trust you. I have what Mommy calls face sight. I can see magic like mage sight, but can also see creatures that seem to be invisible to most people. Though I don't think everything I see are actually creatures. Maybe some are, but some I only interpret as creatures because Mommy says I can't understand them yet. Luna then proceeds to tell Harry about several seemingly fantastical creatures and why the Lovegoods go on expeditions to hopefully take a photo of them as evidence of their existence. Luna explained that the Lovegoods, being half-fae, have always seen creatures most witch and wizards don't seem to be able to perceive. I've never really told you about the Nargles or Raxburts in detail because I didn't want you to stop being my friend like the Weasleys did. Luna said sadly. I'm not going to stop being your friend just because I can't see what you can, Luna. Some people make fun of others who they don't understand. I promise I'd never be like that to you. Luna nodded with hope in her eyes. Harry was the first person outside her family that accepted her as she was. She was overwhelmed with hope and joy. Ginny and Ron used to play with her a long time ago, but they started becoming a bit mean to her when she started talking about Nargles. Since then, Ron started calling her Loony. While Ginny never called her that directly, Luna could tell she started to distance herself a bit after that. She was too busy with her delusions of the boy who lived, marrying her anyway. Harry gave Luna a light hug, which made her smile. One of my secret abilities is being able to teleport anywhere I've been once by concentrating on the location. I usually need a photo to properly recall and concentrate on the location, so I have loads of pictures on my focus. Harry started. I call my ability to teleport jumper ability, and I save pictures as my jump points. As opposed to apparition, I won't be squeezed into a small hole, so it's not as uncomfortable. And while I don't fully understand how it works yet, I know it's not using magic, so it can't normally be blocked by magical means. After demonstrating a bit, Luna was greatly amused by the jump ability. Luna realized that in case she would be in trouble, as long as she can call Harry through the focus, he can save her immediately. Because of this, Luna felt a lot safer with Harry. The sense of security she felt around him warmed her heart. Oh, meeting Hermione. Hermione Granger was walking along the street towards a playground in Hampstead Heath Extension in London. Sometimes she liked walking around the park on a lovely day. She always carried a book for her when she wanted to just sit in a bench in the park. Other children would prefer to play around the slide or swings. But she doesn't really have any friends. She tried to talk to other kids, but they always stayed away from her. Because of her intellect, she was always shunned as an outcast. So she dove into her books. Today was just another day that she would sit around on a bench and read a book in the park. As she was walking on the pathway, she saw two children who seemed a bit lost. Seeing as she didn't recognize them, she thought that maybe this might be a chance to make friends. Hello, are you two lost? Do you need help going somewhere? Oh, it's such a lovely day, isn't it? Do you want to walk with me? Oh, sorry. I'm rambling on, aren't I? She said, barely breathing. She was quite nervous and hoping these two would accept her. Hello. Don't forget to breathe. The boy said, giggling. Yes, we're lost, actually. We've never been here, and we're just a bit confused where to go. I'm Harry Potter, by the way, and this is my friend Luna Lovegood. Hello. It is such a lovely day, isn't it? It's nice to meet you, said Luna. I'm Hermione Granger. Pleasure to meet you, too. At this, Hermione was secretly happy. She thought the introduction was so far so good. She didn't notice that the boy Harry's eyes widened when she said her name. I knew she felt familiar. Well now, she does look a bit like Emma Watson now, doesn't she? Harry silently thought to himself, how the wizards don't see her as anything but gorgeous. I will never understand. Is it all right if we have a walk with you? We're not really familiar with the park, so maybe you can show us around. Harry said hopefully. Of course, Hermione replied excitedly. This was definitely going well for her. I'd be happy to show you around. Harry and Luna spent the next hour walking around with Hermione. Hampstead Heath was a rather big park with around 800 acres in London with a lot of beautiful scenery. Hermione showed them around until they reached a pergola, which was an outdoor garden structure with columns supporting a roofing grid of beams and rafters. They were walking towards the direction of Kenwood House, one of the most important and historic houses in London. This pergola is beautiful. It gives off a mysterious feel, doesn't it? Harry exclaimed. It's surprisingly a peaceful place, considering it's in the middle of a busy London. Maybe next time, we can go back here and have a picnic and just enjoy the scenery while we eat some snacks. Luna told Harry as they looked over the terrace of the pergola, overlooking the heath. Why, that's a good idea, Luna. Would you like to join us sometime for a picnic, Hermione? Harry asked her. Hermione was ecstatic. She'd never been invited on a picnic before. She'd been on a few picnics with her family before, but never with just friends. Yes. I'd be happy to join you. But because she was too excited, she was a bit careless and slipped from the terrace of the pergola. She fell over the terrace, and as she was about to reach the ground, she suddenly slowed down and felt her feet touch the ground gently. She practically did the accidental magic version of arresto momentum. Oh no, it happened again, she thought to herself. A few times unexplainable things happened around her. One time she was returning a book on a high shelf in the library, and the book slipped and toppled over a few other books. As the books were falling, she was so nervous and afraid she'd be banned from the library for making a mess that all the falling books stopped falling and floated back onto shelves. Fortunately, no one saw it, but she was extremely afraid and didn't understand how it happened. She was already so much of an outcast from her intellect alone. She was afraid how bad it would be if people saw that and other mysterious things that happened around her. Did they see? She thought to herself as she looked up. And to her horror, both Harry and Luna were looking directly at her from above the terrace. And no, she was horrified. This was her chance of becoming friends with them, and she blew it with the unexplainable event. But as she was about to cry, Harry said something that stopped her. Well, that was some brilliant accidental magic, don't you think, Luna? Yes, it is, Harry. To think we would come to witness someone's accidental magic. Luna said happily. She looked around just to make sure there was nobody else around but them. Hermione was confused. They were not afraid or disgusted with her, so she didn't understand what was going on. Did they say magic? She thought to herself. Why, you're not afraid of me, are you? She asked worriedly. She had hoped they would accept her. This felt like a chance for her to finally make friends, and she just had to screw it up again. Of course not, silly. It's just accidental magic after all, Luna replied. Hold on for a bit, Luna. I'll just get her back up here. Then Harry turned to Hermione and said to her, Can you jump as high as you can when I tell you? What? Jump? What? Hermione asked, still confused, but hopeful that they don't shun her. Just trust me, when I count to 3, jump as high as you can, all right? Hermione nodded and just followed his instructions. At this point, Harry had progressed his TK enough to start experimenting on flying. While he hasn't actually flown before, he can use his TK to boost his jump higher, so he figured he'll just do that for Hermione. Harry extended his palm towards her and then counted. 1, 2, 3. As Hermione jumped, she felt an invisible force pushing her up, and after a few seconds, she was already back on the terrace with them. Harry grabbed her hand and helped her land properly on the terrace. You all right? He asked. I think so. How did that happen? How did you dash? Hermione asked. Harry just smiled and winked at her. Hermione blushed for a bit, then asked, You said something about accidental and magic? She asked Luna. Yes, that's what you did. Based on your reaction when you fell, you were more worried we saw than what had actually happened. I'm thinking you've had other unexplainable things happen before, so you weren't that surprised by it. That's just accidental magic, so no worries. Luna told her. So what is that exactly, and is that what you did as well to help me get back up? She asked Harry. I guess I should explain this properly. Come on, let's sit down for a bit. They headed to a nearby bench before Harry started to explain. Okay, so long story short, magic exists. Not the kind that people do for card games or shows, but real legitimate magic. No tricks. And the reason most people don't know is that there's a law that separates it from the mundane world. We are called witches and wizards. If you've ever read that sometime in history there were witch hunts and killings, well, we're trying to avoid that and war between people so magic communities are well hidden. Hermione was a bookworm, so she, at some point, had already read about those witch hunts by different religions and churches. Every now and then, some magicals are born to non-magicals, or as they're called in our world, muggles. To be honest, I'm not particularly fond of that word, but there you go. As a magical person, in your case the term is a witch, when you turn 11, you will receive a letter inviting you to magic school in order to control your abilities. It's mostly for yourself and your family, so you don't hurt anyone with accidental magic, and also to make sure you don't break the law and show magic to normal people. Harry continued. Magic school. That sure got Hermione's attention. At first, being told that magic existed was already a roller coaster ride for her. But when she heard that there was a school entirely about magic, that triggered her personality for learning. She was excited at the prospect of learning magic. So are you both? I mean, all three of us are the same? Well, yes. But please don't be too excited about the school. Magic, yes. You could be excited about that. It's a wonderful thing. But magic school, well. Harry trailed. What's wrong with magic school? Hermione asked, worried. Unfortunately, our magic school for Britain isn't the best in terms of standards. Or so I've heard. I think Harry has a lot to say about that one. Luna said sadly. Well, let's just say I've looked it up and compared Britain's with other countries' magic schools, and it doesn't look good. Britain is severely behind in terms of the quality of education. Plus, the British wizarding world itself is rather behind in the times. There's so much bigotry and pure-blood nonsense. Basically, some wizards think that those with non-magical parents are beneath them. They think that being a pure blood dictates who should be on top in terms of power and authority. That's totally barbaric, Hermione exclaimed. It's already the 20th century. How are they still thinking like that? Unfortunately, the British wizarding world seems to be centuries behind, according to those of us who have regular contact with the mundane world. Luna replied. And because of that, witches and wizards who are not of pure blood descent are unable to get better jobs when they graduate. That's also if they graduate. There's also a lot of hate from the pure-blood children. Not all of them, mind you, but a lot. Harry warned her. So what? There's no choice but to endure it. Not exactly. Well, normally for a non-magical born like you, that's the only choice. To go to that school and maybe go out of the country after graduation to hopefully get better opportunities outside the country. But if you have connections, you can hire private tutors and be homeschooled or enroll at a different school outside the country. You see, because of how our magical government is, the representative of the school who will invite you will most likely either lie to your parents or omit certain facts to get you to join said school. But if you know what to do, like getting a private tutor, you can get quality education despite the bigotry and get a better chance of future jobs outside the country. That's greatly disappointing. Here, I thought it was exciting at first, but now, hey, don't think like that. You've just discovered magic. Ignore the politics for now and think of your possibilities. Don't let the state of our world put your enthusiasm down. I just didn't want you to have too high expectations, so I brought it up. Don't worry, like I said, there are alternatives. Maybe I can talk to your parents one of these days and we can figure this all out. He's right, Hermione. Magic is a beautifully wonderful thing. So many things it lets you do, and so many magical beings and creatures out there to discover. Luna added, I guess you're both right. It's just a bit overwhelming, I guess. Hermione thought this was her bridge to finally make a connection, so she just inhaled and did her best to ask, do you think I can be friends with both of you? She tried hopefully. If anyone could be friends with her, she thought might be fellow magicals. We'd definitely be happy to. Luna immediately replied, absolutely. I mean, I thought we already were, considering the nice time we had together when you were showing us around. Harry smiled. I believe this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Don't you, Luna? Yes, Luna said happily. Hermione was nearly in tears. Sure, magic was amazing and interesting, but she was so alone for a long while now, and finally having friends brought her great joy. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give you something so it would be easier to get in touch with us. Harry then handed her a focus and told her how to use it. Hermione was like a robot on steroids with her questions that she forgot to breath again. Slow down, silly. Luna laughed. It's not going to disappear, just breathe. Sorry, that happens when I get too excited. Hermione replied shyly. No worries. I scanned your DNA, so it's locked to you. It won't work with anyone else. That focus I've given you has limited features for now. You can use it to identify objects and devices, scan books to make digital copies, take pictures or videos, and make or accept calls from other focus users. I've added our contacts already. This is brilliant. But did you say scan books? Yes, so you can scan all your books and read from your focus directly. Though the downside would be that you can't get a physical feedback. The focus will allow you to interact with a digital copy of said book, but it's basically a hologram, so it will read your gestures, but you won't feel it. Still, it's a good way to be able to read a book without carrying heavy books, especially when you're on the go. My mommy says she likes the search function best for research because it makes cross-referencing much easier. It's also much quicker to search for specific topics. Luna told her, Does that mean I can read magical books here too? Hermione said excitedly. Eventually, but not just yet. I don't want to interfere with your current mundane education, but after we talk to your parents and sort it all out for your magical education, I can definitely unlock the magical library for you. Oh, well. Harry and Luna giggled at that. I may also need to bring Luna's mom along so an adult can properly tell your parents as well. It's probably more believable coming from an adult than a kid. I'd bring my guardian, but he's a little too busy these days, said Harry. And he's too much silly most days as well. Luna interjected. Sirius was after all a prankster. You can schedule the meeting with your parents and give Luna a call so we can coordinate when it would be best to meet. So the next few minutes, Harry and Luna taught her how to make calls and record using the focus before they said goodbye to her and going home. They also agreed to have a picnic in the weekend. And a few hours later, Harry and Luna went back home. As Hermione was nearing her house, for the first time in a long while, she was absolutely happy. She now had friends, and even more exciting, they were all going to learn magic together. Heathgate Hampstead Gardens suburb, please. Pandora Lovegood told the conductor Stan Shunpike of the night bus. She, Harry, and Luna were on the way to the Grangers after being convinced by Harry to talk Hermione's parents and introduce them to the wizarding world. Harry and Luna had told her that Hermione had accidental magic, so they were sure she was going to get a Hogwarts letter when she turns 11. But Harry convinced her to talk to parents so they have a proper heads up and know exactly what they are walking into when they enter the wizarding world. Pandora understood how much of a disadvantage Muggle-born were in when they enter Hogwarts. Most pure-blood children receive some form of education, but Muggle-born usually enter blind and unaware of their wizarding culture. Since Luna was also quite adamant, she eventually gave in. Though she was quite confused how the two children even met Hermione, but she never asked and simply trusted them. Oh, 8 Heathgate Hampstead Garden suburb. Knock, knock. Hermione, can you get that? Sure, Mum. After the door opened, Hermione saw her 2 new friends and hugged them both. Good morning, Hermione. They both said, hugging her back. This is my mother, Pandora Lovegood. Luna told Hermione and then looked to her mom. This is our friend, Hermione Granger. As the Grangers went to the front door, they saw Hermione with 2 other children and an adult. Hello there. I'm Dr. Dan Granger. This is my wife, Dr. Emma Granger. How do you do? Please come in. Thank you, Pandora replied as they all walked to the living room. Please call me Pandora. And this is Luna and Harry. I suppose there's a lot we have to talk about. To begin with, Pandora cast a simple transfiguration on the extra chair that no one was using into a coat rack. This stunned the Grangers. They looked at Pandora, then to the coat rack. They inspected the coat rack and made sure they could physically touch it. W what? H how? Dan Granger asked. Simply put, magic is real. If you're wondering why this isn't widely known, it's because there are laws in place keeping it a secret to avoid hostilities on both sides. While magic can be powerful individually, please keep in mind that magicals are so few compared to no non-magicals. In Britain, we have roughly about 3,000 witches and wizards, and non-magicals number in millions. Think witch hunts and burning. The Grangers took a few minutes to absorb this first. After a few sips of tea, they started asking questions. So why tell us? Why US and why now? Emma asked. Because your daughter Hermione exhibited what we call accidental magic. To young witch and wizard children, it is fairly normal to exhibit accidental magic when they are facing high stress or emotional outbursts, even danger. I was told by these two that Hermione fell from a terrace by accident, which triggered her own magic to save her. As so she's a witch? Dan asked. Yes, and it is normal for witches and wizards in Britain to receive letters inviting them to attend a school of magic by their 11th birthday. If you choose to, you can accept the invitation and send her to learn, or if you reject it, our government would send personnel to remove your memories of magic if they cannot convince you. Memories? Isn't that a bit harsh just for rejecting a school? Not to mention highly questionable morally speaking. Technically, they remove your memories and will keep doing so when bouts of accidental magic happen until your daughter's magic stabilizes enough to not trigger accidentally anymore. Like a massive cover-up to prevent it from being widespread. Harry interjected. But why though? Can't they just leave us be if we don't send her to school? Shouldn't it be our right to decide? Dan asked. Well, aside from keeping magic secret due to our laws, there are also complications depending on how the family treats accidental magic. For overly religious families, they have a tendency to look at magic as if it were evil and may punish the children. While this might not sound too bad at first, you would have to consider the consequences. Pandora explained. For one, depending on how powerful the witch or wizard is, the accidental magic can range from mildly inconvenient to downright dangerous. Something simple as color change or small object levitations to something as bad as turning small objects into projectiles that could seriously harm other people. And when magical children are severely abused or punished due to their magic, sometimes their magic tries to seal itself in order for the child to survive. But because the magic is sealed, it can sometimes form into what we call our obscurials. Simply put, their own magic becomes uncontrollable that they turn on itself and everything around it, usually causing nasty disasters and death. Long story short, it's better to learn to control magic than risk your own loved ones from accidental magic. So we have no choice but to attend the school then, and this school is what Luna and Harry will be going to as well. Emma asked, there are other options like going to other magic schools or hiring private tutors to be homeschooled and simply take tests later on to acquire rights to carry a wand and practice magic, so to speak. This is normally explained to you by a staff of the school when she gets her letter, but we wanted to talk to you all in order for you to have a head start on understanding this, which is probably one of the options that I'm considering after 1 or 2 years of trying out their magic school. Harry interjected again. Wait, what? You don't want to stay in Hogwarts, Harry? Pandora asked. Well, why, what's wrong with the school? Hogwarts was it? Asked Emma. There's actually a lot of problems. Harry sighed. I'm sure it's not that bad. I mean, me and my husband graduated from Hogwarts as well, after all. Pandora defended. Well, yes, but you're coming from a pure blood perspective. I'm sorry to say, but Muggle-born are treated badly if not harshly. Sure, I'm a half-blood, but that shouldn't matter. It should not matter what my lineage is at all. Plus, it's not like the quality of education in Hogwarts is even good at all anyway. Harry explained. Then he looked at the Grangers to clarify. Muggles are what they call normal or non-magical people. And people like Hermione, who are born of non-magicals, are commonly called Muggle-born. It's not a very nice word, I guess, and it feels like a slur, but for the sake of our conversation, we'll use that for now. I suppose that's true that I'm coming from a pure blood perspective. But what do you mean about the quality of education? And does Sirius know about this? I guess I forgot to give him and Remus a heads up. I should probably talk to them about this as well. But let's talk about the quality first. I looked up the statistics of Hogwarts graduates, employment records in the ministry, and compared them to other countries. When you were a witch or wizard from Britain trying to get jobs outside the country, most countries disregard some of the records for certain subjects like history, potions, and Muggle studies. They would normally consider British as beginners in that area. An O or O+ from those subjects mean nothing to other countries if the school is Hogwarts. Records show that since Albus Dumbledore took his position as headmaster, the quality of education has dropped significantly in those subjects. For potions, it's most likely Snape's fault. That should have been solved now since his arrest. For history, they have a ghost teaching it who is stuck on a loop droning on about Goblin Rebellion. Muggle studies is a joke considering their professor hasn't been to Muggle areas for a long time and the material is also a century behind. Then there's also the subjects and topics Dumbledore removed because he claims the material is too dark, such as rituals or more obscure knowledge. And from what I can gather, Muggle-born from Britain can't get any jobs higher than secretarial positions or those with menial work. The higher-paying ones or positions unfortunately require purebloods. That's absurd. How can such discrimination be allowed in this day and age? Dan asked. Pandora, meanwhile, was surprised since she did not really notice until someone actually pointed it out. But the more she thought about it, that was indeed the case. It just never affected them as much since they were indeed purebloods and their friends were the same. While James was an exception since he married a Muggle-born, they didn't mind, but they also did not consider her obstacles. The answer to that is quite unfortunate. Witches and wizards are in fact rather lazy compared to Muggles. They believe in the idea of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Not many witch and wizards like to innovate or improve. If you entered magical communities here in Britain, the first thing you'd notice is that visually, they look like they are stuck in the 19th century while we are all in the 20th. In terms of fashion, furniture, daily living, while electricity can be excused as highly magical environments tend to have interference with it and modern devices, it does not excuse the lack of innovation or progress. Sure, they know about modern cars and such for those who regularly travel in London, but for things like airplanes or helicopters, those things still baffle them. In hindsight, this would be fine considering it's an entirely different world with its own culture and traditions, but the lack of willingness to understand the rest of the world severely hinders their progress. You could say they're being left behind by the rest of the world. Harry was on a roll. Pandora was feeling a bit heated, but she understood since she and her family are more open and had more contact with Muggles than most purebloods. She also took note that Harry wasn't saying this to insult their kind, but instead is being respectful while pointing out his critiques. Long story short, there's a lot of conveniences in magic like, say, transportation. They have something that is practically teleportation, so why bother inventing cars and vehicles? So their society has progressed differently. But back to the discrimination, because of their own slow progress, even the ideas that most modern countries now embrace, they're still stuck in rather archaic societal norms from a Muggle perspective. They have not yet evolved enough as a society to be more open and accepting to other cultures and ideas. Equality is still a new thing to them. Hence, Muggle-born are heavily discriminated not just socially, but legally speaking as well. And we haven't even gotten into the other magical beings, creatures, and races yet. Pandora's eyes were truly opened. These are points she and her family never really thought about properly, as it never affected them. While Luna was also there listening, she was doing her best to try and keep up and look at it from Harry's point of view. So to summarize, Harry was now looking at Pandora and Luna. I do not intend to stay in the British wizarding world. I want to try it for maybe a year. Possibly 2 if I really stretch it. But after that, I intend to get tutors or look into other countries' magical schools. Compared to other countries' magical schools, we only have Hogwarts, which is unfortunately near the bottom of most international school rankings. Other countries who are more open to Muggles have embraced progress in terms of technology and ideas. So not only is Britain being left behind as a society, but also in terms of education as well. I was actually hoping to drag Luna with me on this plan, if it's all right with you and Xenophilus. Luna was slightly relieved that she wasn't going to be left alone at Hogwarts and that she was being considered in his plans. And since the magical community might work against Hermione, it might be better for her as well to join us. After all, everything I have mentioned so far was about magical subjects alone. Unfortunately, they don't teach Muggle subjects, so if you let Hermione go to Hogwarts, she will be locked in for the magical community and not be able to have Muggle schooling knowledge. It means she won't be able to get jobs on the non-magical side. This last statement made the Grangers reconsider more. After all, they knew their daughter was exceptionally bright and has the potential to go far in their world. If indeed they allowed Hermione to go to this magical school of theirs, she would not be getting normal education and would not be able to get work outside the magical communities. So what do you intend to do, Harry? Have tutors after second or maybe third year onwards? Pandora asked. Yes, but not just that. I also intend to mix in normal subjects like math, science, and other Muggle subjects. Then take OWLs later on for the magical side and General Certificate of Secondary Education, GCSE, for the Muggle side. Though even if I choose other magical schools, I still intend to keep up with Muggle education, so we can, if we choose, have proper certifications to work in or out of the magical communities. It does give you more options, doesn't it? But what do you intend after school in the first place? You made it sound like you don't intend to go back to the British wizarding world after your education. Exactly. I don't want to remain in that world simply because the ones in power are those who have the biggest to gain when it comes to pure blood laws and ideas. If we want proper equality, either they all need to change their minds, which is highly unlikely, or they all need to be replaced. And since I don't intend to start a revolution or war or anything, I intend to leave instead. The boy who lived, leaving Britain. You do realize how big of a storm this is going to cause, yes? Pandora asked. Yeah, so I need to plan ahead. The Grangers were all rather feeling disappointed at what they had heard about the magical world. On one hand, the idea of magic being real and going to a magic school was very exciting for Hermione, but after hearing what she would face, it doesn't sound as enticing anymore. But they regained hope after hearing the option of getting tutors or other country schools. The big selling point that made them look favorably on Harry's own plan was the idea of still continuing normal education so he would have a foot on both worlds. That was the best case scenario. Oh, and by the way, I intend to warn the Muggle-born in Hogwarts as well. I want to give them all the heads up so they all would know what they are getting into. I imagine if the Muggle-born were actually told of this discrimination beforehand, Hogwarts would hardly have any Muggle-born students left. After all, when professors invite Muggle-born, they never say anything like that so students and Muggle parents would be enticed. No one really warns them that they would not have good jobs after graduation. The British wizarding world needs Muggle-born than they think or will ever care to admit. Can you imagine if they all left and only purebloods remain? Their society will likely collapse on itself after a few generations with all that inbreeding. With no new genetic material, more and more squibs will appear and they will loose magic. Squibs? Emma asked. Non-magical people born from magical families. My guess is that all the mutations that come from inbreeding with no new genetic material comes out in the form of squibs. In a Muggle world, inbreeding causes harmful genetic mutations. In the wizarding world, my theory is that it comes in the form of squibs. And as time progresses, these pure blood families would eventually run out of new genetic material and would eventually die out. This can be observed in the form of more and more magical abilities being lost, such as Parcel Tongue, Metamorphagus, Mage Sight, and more. And the more drastic examples are squibs who lose magic altogether. Pandora was stunned. It fits. More and more families are indeed losing magical abilities over generations. And as much as most families deny, the fact is that more and more squibs are appearing. The only reason this is not more widespread is because the squibs are generally shunned or discarded onto the Muggle world. Then she remembered Nymphadora Tonks. Her mother was a pure blood from the Black family, which lost the Metamorphagus gift over a few generations. And since Andromeda, Dora's mother, married a Muggle-born wizard, new genetic material was introduced and the gift resurfaced with Dora. Then and there, she finally realized that if this is true, it would mean that it was more beneficial for their family to introduce new genetic material to their family. Then she looked at Harry with a glint in her eye. Since Harry and Luna was close, wouldn't he be the best match for her little moon? I wonder if Harry is open for a possible betrothal. She thought to herself, oh, giving Grangers whiz tomes and focus. After a few more hours of discussions regarding magic and the magical community, they decided to end there for now, since it was a massive information dump. They were still a few years away from getting their first Hogwarts letter anyway, so they have a lot of time to plan and consider their steps. While Harry's talk about the real state of the wizarding world dampened their view a bit, it was still magic, so it was worth still being excited over. Harry gave the Grangers a whiz tome and focus each while explaining that it was an exclusive product for now. Pandora explained to them about Harry inventing these somehow, which was still quite questionable considering his age. She also taught them how to access the older Quibbler editions to get a small idea about the magical world. So, this focus is kind of like a mobile telephone. Dan asked. At this point, mobile phones weren't a thing yet, so not many people have these just yet. They won't be around till late 1990s, so this idea, this early, was quite surprising to the Grangers. Among other things, but for now, with the current version, yes. Though the ones I gave you have an extra feature of showing labels on any magical object you may come across. For magicals, professionals learn to detect magical artifacts and such nearly instinctively. For students, we still need to learn how to detect them. But the focus will help you if you come across them. This way, it could be an early warning system for you to be careful when touching them. More so when you don't know where it came from. This is incredible. And with the device itself being this small, we can take it anywhere and be able to call each other easily. Will you be selling this as a marketable product? This is brilliant, Dan exclaimed. Eventually. For now, it's limited to family and friends. Though the Whiz Tome is intended for replacing newspapers on our side, I intend to launch it pretty soon. My godfather is helping me with that. Oh. The talks ended and the three bid goodbye to the Grangers. Harry and Luna promised to visit Hermione often, as well as promised the Grangers to invite them over some time as well. The Grangers had a lot of information to consider, but at least they now know and understand a bit about what has been happening with Hermione. They were lucky enough that they met people who could explain this to them before they were officially introduced to that world face first. They would then spend a few more hours considering the pros and cons of going to normal school, magic school, or Harry's plan. Oh, as for the three magicals, Pandora slapped Harry in the back of his head lightly. Next time, give me a heads up about your plans before you dump all of it while we're trying to introduce muggles to the magical world. That really caught me off guard. She scolded. Right? Sorry. Harry just laughed it off with a shrug while Luna simply giggled at him. And you need to discuss this with Sirius before you make assumptions, all right? You need to give him a heads up to get proper tutors or send possible application or enrollment forms for other schools. Not to mention ours for Lunas.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500-plus novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.